Happy Friday, Smite fans, and welcome into day number 1 of the North American Smite World Championship qualifiers. Before we get into today, let's take a look at what happened yesterday over in EU, in day 1 of the EU qualifiers. You'll notice some of the losers' matches are filled in down there on the bottom. Unfortunately for Pika noobs, they fall down to Smiley Face. Warm Snails suffer a similar fate. So, Cold Alpacas versus Smiley Face tomorrow. We'll be able to see that one, see who gets knocked out, and then, of course, Belt Slap versus Snake Pit remain up top. Let's jump into North America. I won't be doing that alone, though. Kiki is with me. Kiki, expect any big changes in play style from EU over to NA? I know pace of game is generally where some people go with that.
Well, the European games were pretty action-packed, but North America, definitely, they tend to make it a bloodbath. So I'm expecting to see some fun stuff, hopefully some new picks.
That's right, yeah, the pick and ban phase is going to be a lot of fun to follow. Here is our schedule for this fun Friday of Smite action. Hugs and Kisses versus Spreed will start us off. Froggy versus Mind the Gap after that. And then the winner of matches 1 and 2 will face off against your number 1 and number 2 seed later on here in the day. An overall look at the bracket, of course. You got that losers bracket down there towards the bottom. So you lose one, you're not entirely out. You got another chance to work your way through. And then upper bracket finals. You get that 1-game advantage, so important to follow along with that. If you don't lose this weekend, you definitely get a small edge in the finals in your chase to qualify for the Smite World Championships. Let's talk about the matchup we have here, though, Kiki. Hugs and Kisses versus Spreed. Hugs and Kisses is a team. Chronic, Kirmi, Privative, Renjaru, Oceans. What do you think of that lineup? You got some confidence in this team?
Well, I actually was on that team like
There you go.
3 months ago or something, so... You know, I've teamed with them, and they're a good group of guys. I think if they have their heads on straight, they will show us what they're worth. But Heed's team, I know, is very good in the early game. So
sure.
If you let them snowball the early game, it's all going to be about jungle pressure, I think, in this set.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point, especially when what we've talked about in North America is the idea that you want to get fired out of a cannon, you want to get a lot of kills on the board early on here. So with this Hugs and Kisses team, you look at maybe the jungle there. You mentioned jungle pressure. Kirmi, do you think that he has the ability to kind of roll some of this early game and get his team off to a good start?
He definitely has some games where he'll pop off. He likes to favor gods like Erlang, let him initiate properly. He used to love Humbots when I was on the team. But Oceans, I feel like, is actually going to be a big part of whether they can get things done or not. He's really good at setting up team fights and just baiting out cooldowns. And Chronic actually was really improving in terms of frontline and just leading the charge as well.
Yeah, so this is I think you worded it pretty well here, where this is a well-rounded team where, you know, maybe you look towards the jungle, but you can also get a lot of that pressure out of the support role. I think important, one big trend to follow, and that we've had in the SPL this year, is the ability and the idea of having Yamoja as a viable option in the pick and ban phase. Oceans, obviously, through some of those highlights there, shows us that Yamoja is in that god pool, so definitely something to look out towards there. Quick mention over, we mentioned just earlier Spreed, and this lineup here, you got Heed, SOT, Spreen, Guy J, and Bluegen. What's your initial reaction at that lineup? Do you think they have the ability to go toe-to-toe with this Hugs and Kisses team?
Oh, definitely. As long as they don't stumble, like I said, in the early game, I feel like that team, you know, if they have a bad early game, their mid game might just get a little bit iffy. And, you know, players tend to tilt, especially on such high-stake games like right now. But I don't think we'll be seeing any of that. Bluegen is a really great support. He's super aggressive. And I'm definitely interested to see what Solar Troll is going to be bringing to us in the jungle.
I agree. SOT has been kind of an infusion of excitement, I suppose, down in the SEC, where I'm remembering a couple games we did towards the end of the phase in the SEC where SOT was just kind of rolling whatever team they were playing against, and you know, it's sitting in the entrance of their side of the jungle, waiting to farm off more kills. So definitely have the ability to do that. And then Guy J as well. He was really exciting to watch at the SPL level. So high expectations, I think, for this Spreed team. Overall, before we jump into picks and bans for Game 1, on paper, do you look at one team kind of favored over the other in this matchup, or do you think this one has the potential to be pretty close?
I think the first game is going to be very telling. Whoever wins the first game might just take the set. I feel like that's what generally happens. There is still the losers bracket, so people aren't going to be pulling out all their picks right away. Maybe just trying to hide things a little bit, you know, not let the enemy know too much. But I gotta give my bias for Hugs and Kisses.
Fair enough. Hey, look, you know, you got some relationships with those guys there. Absolutely. Caster bias, as long as it's out on the table, I suppose that's A-okay. Well, we've set that table. It's time to eat in picks and bans. Let's see what these two teams have on set for us. And we talked a lot about, I think, the jungle and the picks that we expect to see there. I think you're great at pointing out Bluegan and the Oceans matchup there over in support. I think that'll be somewhat of a contested area here throughout picks and bans. What have you made meta-wise so far this weekend? I suppose we've only seen EU. Do you expect to see some different picks, some different priorities over here in NA?
I feel like we're definitely going to keep that trend going maybe on the Cupid. People are starting to be like, maybe Cupid's not that great. Just pop Heavenly or maybe run like Heim into him. People like Heim. They like that matchup. But I think we might get to see some Yemoja this game. NA definitely prefers to ban more aggressive gods or gods that are really hard to control. Yemoja's kind of on that line, but since she's been nerfed multiple times, she's at a point where she could be dealt with.
Right. That's always been the conversation, at least in the SPL when we've seen Yemoja, is if you're going to let her through, you have to have some way to deal with her. And maybe now with some of the numbers changes on her end, she's in more of a manageable state. And it's up to Spreed to decide if they want her open on the board, and she is. Right now, the healers were really the focus of the Spreed bans in their first three, taking away the Hell and the Aphrodite. Don't want to deal with any of that, so let's take that off the board. So there's a lot here, Kiki, I think, available for Hugs and Kisses with their first overall pick. They've only taken away the Set and the Ra, and then the Cthulhu, of course. We've seen a rise in Cthulhu here recently. I think a little bit of a difference from what we saw in EU is potentially that the Hunter is going to get picked first overall, and it's going to be the Cupid, and I think that makes some sense.
I definitely agree with that. You know, the little god with his wings, you know, he's going to fly around, heal everyone up, cripple, which is honestly the biggest thing. The main gods that are just a little too OP, it's because it's based on their mobility, you know, like Susano, Serket. It's really hard to deal with that. So once you have a Cupid ult that can cripple anyone, it's just a great addition to a team. Plus, you can never go wrong with heals. As they lock in Yemoja, they definitely agree with me.
Yeah, Yemoja, fantastic, I think, first overall pick here for Spreed. And Persephone, we had a set yesterday where it was Yemoja, Persephone, and then, you know, 2 or 3 other picks down the line. Obviously, 3 other picks to make 5 down the line. But then we were still somehow questioning whether or not that team got away with the better draft. It is wild to me that we're seeing a Yemoja, Persephone first 2 picks here. I mean, that's got to be one of the strongest combos you can get right off the bat, right?
It's definitely a good combo, but keep in mind I touched on the cripple. So you do have the cripple for the Persephone. That's going to ruin her dash a bit. And it can mess around with Yemoja's 3s. So it's definitely just an interesting thing to see. Now that Smite has so many gods, you only have 6 bans. You know, something's going to get through, so you just got to learn how to play the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point in that probably Hugs and Kisses are realizing, well, we can afford to let this through if we have enough counterplay to it later on in our own draft. Ymir, Awilix round out the first 3 for Hugs and Kisses. Guan Yu will make 3 over there for Spreed. So let's look at picks 2 and 3, I think, here for Hugs and Kisses. We saw this rise of Ymir, I think, out of the solo lane a little bit there yesterday. Do you expect this to be Cupid, Ymir, and duo, or probably too early to tell here, depending on the last 2 picks for Hugs and Kisses?
As far as I know, Chronic is not a big fan of the Guardians. He might play like a couple Cerberus, but he much prefers Warriors. He likes to be aggressive. He wants to be able to get in there. And Ocean's Ymir, his walls are on point. I'm definitely happy to start seeing some top 3 Ymirs. And I like the idea of Hugs and Kisses right now. They have the wall to force the jump. So they have many options.
Good point.
But I don't know, the front line on Sprees, they have the Guan, they have Yemoja. It's kind of scary right now.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It's a lot to work against for sure, with plenty of lockdown sustained there as well. Seems to be the name of the game for Spreed. Heimdall will make his way into the second round of picks for Spree, just to catch up on the final 4 bans. Hebo, Achilles taken away. So sensing mid, maybe some jungle there. Well, obviously not jungle with the Wheelix on the board, so some mid pressure and solo, of course. Merlin ends up getting locked in here after the Erlang Shen and the Rom get banned out by Hugs and Kisses. So we've also seen this rise of Merlin, I think, here, Kiki, where some of us didn't quite know where to put him in the mid lane, but these teams in this wildcard weekend are valuing this pick highly.
Yeah, I think the main key there is carries want to be safe right now. If you're an unsafe character like Artemis, you know, you're just not going to have a good time. So
True.
really, when you can have a dash, and Merlin's great into Umoja because when she puts her walls up, it's some characters like Persephone can't shoot through the walls. Merlin is able to deploy his abilities, so it'll help out with the Ymir. You always need consistent follow-up. It's a well-rounded comp from Hugs and Kisses, and we'll see if they log in that Loki or not.
I don't know. We've been getting trolled all weekend with this pick. It's the Nemesis instead, presumably out of the jungle for SOT. I think fantastically touched on this Hugs and Kisses comp and what you expect them to do. Look over towards Spreed. What do you see this composition attempting to do? And I guess maybe they'll have a tough time with some of that mobility going into the Hugs and Kisses draft.
It's just going to be really hard to kill them. Nem has a shield, Heim has a bunch of peel, and like look at the rest of them. But if Hugs and Kisses can make sure that their engages are coordinated, they have good beads plays and good options.
It's all about coordination then, it seems, for Spreed, where Hugs and Kisses, they've got some great setup and some follow-up there in those team fights. It's can Spreed survive some of maybe the lockdown and the onslaught that Hugs and Kisses are bringing, but I suppose you could say the same for the other side there as well. Nemesis versus Wheelix in that jungle matchup. Does that interest you at all?
It's going to be very 50-50. Wheelix has a better clear, but it's going to just depend on who can get an early gank off, maybe.
Sure.
Some cheesy plays.
That's right, yeah, Mifflin loves the old level 2 or level 3 cringe gank over to the duo lane. Maybe we'll start to see some of that. I want to see SOT have a big game here, I think, because we've seen in the past, out of the jungle specifically, the way that this guy can take over some games, start to control things in his favor. And when that gets going, Spreed tends to follow up there with him on that one. And then I think, you know, we touched very briefly on Chronic and his desire to play some of these aggressive, upfront, in-your-face warriors. He'll be going up against Guan Yu there out of that solo lane. Do you think that's a matchup where Chronic is going to be able to find some comfort and exert some pressure in the early?
I think it would depend if they can steal some blue buffs from the Guan Yu, get the King Arthur some sort of lead. He can just spin to win in front of the enemy's faces. But if he doesn't get ahead, King Arthur doesn't do the most damage. You're up against a Umoja Guan, so they really have to make sure that they're using their resources properly.
Right, and you know, with the Hunters and the way they are here in this matchup, I think this is going to be interesting as well, where we've seen Heimdall. I wouldn't necessarily say he is fallen super behind or anything like that in the early, maybe even the opposite, but we've seen what late game Heimdall can do, you know, as the game rolls on and he gets some of those items and some of those levels online. Yeah, the man is chopping in some of those late game fights. So do you think, you know, as important as early pressure as this Spreed team might feel a little bit more comfortable as the game goes on with how some of their picks scale?
Yeah, their comp just seems a lot easier, more forgiving. So I'm definitely giving the draft over to Spreed's team.
Hey, Spreed, they've got the potential. They just need to convert that potential into kinetic, as our friend John Finch would put it there. Game number 1 between Hugs and Kisses and Spreed. Let's jump on in.
Thank you, Dave. It's going to be me, Blazybud, and Alpha Jackal, the two casters from the Queensland, here bringing you this first NA set of the day. Welcome, AJ. How are you doing today?
I'm doing quite well. It's a nice sunny, well, I say sunny afternoon. It's cloudy, but something that's not going to be cloudy is the fact that this game is going to be explosive. Two very aggressive compositions drafted, especially coming out of the jungle. Two junglers that like to get ahead, like to play in your face. And they've picked Wheelix and Nemesis. They define their playstyles extremely well, so I'm expecting some heavy early jungle pressure from both of them. I'm expecting kills galore.
Yeah, absolutely. On top of that, we've got NA, which is very famously known for its fast-paced gameplay, so definitely lends themselves to this playstyle, do both of these jungle picks, and already we're seeing that kind of pressure coming out here as Yamoja is just so good at facilitating that early game damage and heal. And I mean, I said it earlier in chat, AJ. I was talking about it earlier. First pick in NA, we had Cupid and Yamoja, which is not something that we often see, but hold on real quick. Ocean's blinking forward, trying to do a little bit of damage, but not quite able to find it. Still level 1, not having the freeze available, so that was a little strange to me. Maybe a little overeager.
I mean, if he blinks in with level 2 and uses his freeze, he just gets beads from Gaichain, they probably turn around on him. Gaichain's not going to beat the slow, meaning that they've got better potential to hit damage off of that CC. As I say that, he uses beads at the very final second there, but it's just a better opportunity for them to get damage off of the slow.
Speaking of damage off of a slow, Spreen already going to fall down here. 1v2 in the jungle. Solo Troll going in hot. Can he find it? Health bars are low. Wait, he's going to get one, but Private is going to... Sorry, Primitive is going to be able to pick up that kill there. 1v2. That's really impressive for SOT, being able to find that pickup. Even though he does fall, it's got to feel good. And in the left-hand side, even more damage is flying. Bluegan is going to get stunned out there by the heart bomb, but not really too much to come out of it, seeing as Ocean's here. Not any mana to his name, so he's going to be waiting around for some of that to regen back up.
One of the curses of having an ability on a 8-second cooldown is you're going to be using it a lot, and if you use it a lot, you use up all your mana. So Ocean's going to have to just stay a bit further back, play a bit less aggressive, which is not really what you want to be doing with Ymir. You want to try and get this pressure early, the Cupid's there to help facilitate that, but they've come up against one of the best early game clearing hunters in Heimdall, and probably the best early clear guardian in Yamoja.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a rough lane for them. Yamoja, one of those characters, to circle back to my point, who can really play any kind of support. You know, you can often split up Guardians into your supporty supports, your aggressive supports, and your more specialist supports. So your healers, your super CC kind of characters, right? The Kumba, the Sylvanas, for example. Yamoja can kind of fill any of those shoes, right? She can be the healer, she can be the CC bot, she can dish out 1 metric hecton of damage, and no one can really do much about it, but it's all about managing that Omi, which is the hard part.
It is hard in the early game, but once you get more towards that mid and late portion of the game, once you have some of your items online, have your passive fully built up, which gives you 3 extra bars of Omi, you will be able to manage it a bit better, which is, I think it's a nice balance point for the character. You have to manage it extremely well early to be effective, but then later on in the game, you can be rewarded for getting ahead by being able to really dominate and control proceedings in those team fights. Back over to the solo lane right now. Both of the solo laners opting away from the teleport, something we're starting to see a lot more of from pretty much every single solo laner, both North American and European. Going in for the blinks, both of them, which means that they will have a second relic later on for the team, rather than needing to just have that teleport as a crutch relic to get them back into lane and farming.
So I guess my question to you, AJ, seeing as there haven't, as far as I'm aware, been any real changes to hold that thought, in fact, is up into the sky goes Heat, and he's going to get drop-kicked back down by
Beautiful
Crimmy.
combo.
Yeah, nice little 1-2 combination there, beautifully timed by Crimmy to be able to block off that relatively low knock-up from Chronix 2 in that assault stance, so I'm going to be happy about that. But going back to the question, there has not really been too many changes to teleport as a relic, so why are we seeing such a big shift away from it?
Teams just feel like if they have a teleport on their solo laner, that they only really have 9 relics come the late portion of the game. And you don't want to have just 9 relics, you want to have a full 10 set. If your solo laner can get Blink and not have to deal with a teleport, they can get something for the rest of the team. They can get a Cursed Ankh if there's too much healing, they can get a Horrific Emblem if they really wanted to, they can get another Shell. Personally, I'm more of a fan of the Sunder myself, but I don't think that's going to find its way to competitive.
I am well aware of your sunderous habits, AJ, and I do dearly hope that we don't have to witness that at this level of play as he'd once again taken to the sky by Chronic, but I don't really think there's too much kill potential over here in this right-hand side. Guan Yu definitely has the sustain to be able to keep up with King Arthur, who has just finished up those reinforced Greaves, which, I mean, against a Guan Yu, who is outputting so much tick damage, those are going to really stack up and give Chronic a lot of defense.
And it's just what you generally get onto the King Arthur and most solo laners these days. King Arthur specifically because you're going to be using your abilities not predominantly on the wave, but on the enemy solo laner. You're going to be taking a lot of minion damage, a lot of return damage from that solo laner, so you want to be as tanky as possible. And what's more, if he does go into a Gladiator Shield as his third item, because most ones with King Arthur's going to go for a sort of
Sorry to cut you off,
item.
AJ, as Oceans is in a little bit of trouble, gets sent through the 9-round solo troll, waiting for him when he lands and goes straight into the ultimate. Ice shards are flying, not enough to do enough damage to Gaijay though. Here comes Merlin, Fields of Love were dropped there by Renjaru, but a beautiful part the waters there is going to pretty much kick that fight down into the ground. Renjaru looking for something else, but now it's going to be Wheelix moving in here, gets the ultimate, now Grasp of the Death! It's going to be enough to save Blugan. The tether is going to be beautiful there. Kirimi, nowhere to go alongside that Riptide from Blugan, but he's still trying for it, chasing him down, jumps under the tier 1 tower. Spreen is going to pay the penance fee for not allowing Kirimi to finish off the Emoja, and look at him, he's jumping for joy into the right side jungle here.
Very odd choice, though, from Spreen to not cancel his revival. If there's no wave to get, no kill potential to get, I think he just needs to cancel right there to get the to just, well, keep part of his passive alive. But fight breaks out over on the blue buff and almost falls down to Kermie, but a great bit of peel from Chronic is going to save the life of his jungler.
And so far, that Ice Shards should be about it. No one really wants to cross that threshold and take that slow, because, I mean, Merlin's to an ice form at, maybe not quite at this point, but at later levels can rack up to, I want to say, 80% slow? Something insane like that if it hits every single tick?
I'm unsure of the exact number myself, but it does feel like you are walking through mud that is coming up to about your chin level. That's how slow it feels. And Oceans is going to feel a bit slow as well right now. He's going to get CC locked by Blugan. We were talking about it earlier, and now comes another slow from Nemesis. Once again, this could be a dead Ymir, but a good Ice Shard is going to provide some heal for him.
I feel like if the Eclipse doesn't come through the wall there from Primitive, I think Spree'd still decide to chase in for that kill, but I think it's a very good option there. You got the Ice Shards channeling, you got that Eclipse ticking away. You really don't want to have to take all of that damage in the face at once. So, smart move there from Spreed to kind of realize that restraint and back off.
So this is a slightly different situation to what we usually have seen Spreed in. Don't forget Spreed, your first seed SOC team. We've also been playing SOC. They've been just consistently dominating the enemy team. And we on the desk, Dawson did point out that they've been basically just fighting in the enemy jungle for the most part. This is not what they usually see to be, which is behind. So it's interesting to see just how well they're going to be playing here. But Blugan is going to be feeling that it's not home right now.
I have a theory that Blugan never really existed. I don't think he really... If he existed... Yeah, like, if he really existed, would he have died that quickly? Because I don't think so. So, clearly Blugan isn't real, but... Spreed definitely have this SPL pedigree to them, you know, SOT and, I was about to say Oceans, but Oceans is on Hugs and Kisses, but still, SOT definitely brings enough to the table at Spreed that his level of experience kind of elevates the rest of his team. You know, you don't get to that level of play without being able to go, hey guys, that was a really good scrim, but, you know, we should do it this way, or we should change something up here. And I think that really... is probably a contributing factor as to why Spreed have been doing so well this split.
Well, they're doing well in most parts of the map right now. They have a slight lead in the duo lane, but the jungle, 2 levels down. The almost iconic figure on this team of Solo Troll down 2 levels. Heed, other part of the namesake of the name of the team, is down a level to the King Arthur. That doesn't particularly bode well for them for the mid game. For the early game, bit less important if they're going to be fighting over on this left-hand side, looking for the Gold Fury a bit more. But the second that Chronic and Kermie start rotating into the left-hand side and start looking for fights over here, they're going to have a lot more impact than Solo Troll or Heed. And speaking of rotations, Kermie makes his presence known and Gaijay quickly escapes, and I think that's the correct move.
Bifrost is just such a nightmare for junglers. I can tell you from experience that you want to come and gank a Heimdall, you better be Susano, because you're just not chasing him, and Spreed are gonna take that advantage somehow and just take a Gold Fury absolutely free, as you said. Just by the looks of it, no ward coverage in or around the Gold Fury from Hugs and Kisses.
They saw on the Sentry Ward down on the bottom left mids, Hugs and Kisses have a Sentry Ward, that they saw Guan Yu rotating into that path, so they surely had to have an idea that the Gold Fury was going down, just no one around to potentially contest it, is what I'm feeling. They don't really have the idea to contest this back camps though, as Kirby goes aggressive on Solo Troll once again. A great Nemesis shield, gonna save most of the damage from that Feather Step, but that's gonna be about it for Flashy plays.
River's Rebuke isn't quite going to save the life of anyone just yet, but still alive for the rest of the members of Spreed for now. Chronic trying to change that fact, however, as Heed also trying to work on his own set of kills. Oceans is going to get baited out. The Free's not going to get the mark. He dashing through the big ice cube, but now it's Chronic back on the reoffensive, trying to bait a little bit more HP out of Spreed, but I mean, with Guan Yu and Yamoja combined and the lack of anti-heal so far on the King Arthur, I don't think there was any chance in heck that he was going to get through that life bar.
No, I don't think so. Unless he had his big Excalibur's ultimate coming back up, I agree. That kill potential there was low to none. But again, a 1-for-1 trade. But again, I believe that favors Hugs and Kisses. They trade out their Ymir, who's tiny bit behind, for the Nemesis, who's now 3 levels behind Kermie. I would definitely take that trade every single day of the week if I am Oceans.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Nemesis is one of those characters who, they're good early, they fall off kind of towards the mid-game, and then late game, they really hit their stride. And Awelix, I feel like, fits the same kind of a mold, in that she's just really good early and late with a little bit of a dip in the mid-game, as Heed is really feeling that mid-game damage. He's going to fall down, and now Grasp of the Dead is going to do a lot to stop these two players from Hugs and Kisses from getting out, and Solo Troll is going to capitalize. He's going to pick up one, finally, claiming a kill onto the enemy jungler in revenge and catching up a fair amount off of just that one alone, but doesn't look like Spreed are going to have any more issues with Hugs and Kisses, as they're going to get out just fine, but important pickup there for Solo Troll.
I think that is one of the biggest pickups they could have done. It's just finally shutting down some of this aggression from Kermie and putting almost a breather for Solo Troll to finally get some farm for himself, finally start to catch back up. He's got pretty much at half a level just from that kill alone, so closing that gap a slight bit, allowing some more rotations to come out from Heat as well, but Gaijay also finding himself over on this right-hand side. Hugs and Kisses giving up a second objective here. No, they steal it!
No, they didn't! Unbelievable! What? Unbelievable! Look, no ward coverage behind that pyro wall for Spreed, and Primitive is just able to walk in, throw out the one in that void stance, and it's just enough. Spreed just not having the level of secure, I suppose. Like, Merlin doesn't necessarily have that big objective secure ability, right? But those ticks really do a lot. As over on the left-hand side, Gaijay forced to Bifrost and Beads away from Renjaru's ultimate, but Hugs and Kisses, after losing that Gold Fury, after getting their second kill onto Krimi, got to be feeling that momentum swinging back in their direction now.
Well, just shy of a 5,000 experience difference, 2,500 gold or thereabouts. I'm definitely thinking that they feel like they're in the driver's seat at this point. And I wouldn't be surprised if they continue with this momentum for the next 5 or 6 minutes, simply because they do have some pretty good mid-game picks in the fact that they've got the Cupid, the Ymir can do quite well in the mid-game, King Arthur comes into his stride on his own in the mid-game, and I think Merlin does extremely, extremely well in this mid-game, and even in the late game, he's probably one of the top mages you can pick. But they do have to think about trying to figure out how to end this game early or start to bring up to that 10,000 gold lead. Because the longer this game goes on, the less effective their comp really becomes in these teamfight scenarios compared to that of Spreed. You have a look at what they have on their side. They have the Nemesis, as you pointed out, extremely good in that late game. 1U starts to rotate, starts to be a nuisance, starts to dive onto Renjaro and Primitive. They can't really do much to peel off the Guan Yu when he's in that cavalry charge. And that's all without saying they have a Persephone and a Heimdall as well.
Yeah, it's going to be rough for them, surely, but Hugs and Kisses so far looking like they might be able to pull it off, you know, but as you said, it is all about if they are going to be able to transition this early lead into an early win, as Heed in a bit of trouble here. River's Rebuke is going to separate off the rest of the fight. Heed pressing the beads button to get himself away from the upgraded Excalibur ult there. Chronic really got to be happy about forcing his lane opponent into going beads for that second relic. But then again, that is one of those bonuses for not going into the teleport relic. Look at that Riptide pulling Oceans back in. Cavalry charge comes through, and now the Fields of Love as well. Ocean still in a bit of trouble, and he's going to finally take a stumble. Heed takes credit for that kill, and Blugan is on the retreat alongside the rest of his team. Hugs and Kisses, they look like they're pretty happy to let him go and maybe look to set up around Gold Fury, but nope, never mind.
So Spreed's strategy seems to just be, if Oceans even steps up a tiny bit, blow him up. We have a lot of tank shred on the team between the Nemesis and the Guan Yu, so we can very easily just kill him straight away, lock him down with the Grasp of Death coming from the Persephone, and he's just a dead Ymir, and it's working out so well so far. 3 deaths on the Ymir's name, 2 levels behind, so his natural protections, his natural health is a bit lower than it should be at this point in the game. And if it goes on any longer, Oceans might not be able to even take part in some of these team fights.
It's definitely one of the negatives about playing Ymir, especially against this comp with a lot of displacement. You know, you got Spreen who can really lock him down, Blugan who can Riptide him in and out, Gaijay who can just send him to the sky, and SOT who can slow him into oblivion. Ymir just really doesn't have a lot of options against that team. However, on the flip side, you know, Spreed are really going to have trouble getting over these Ymir walls once Oceans has got a couple levels in it. So if he can find the farm, I don't think he should be in too much of a bad position as long as he stays in position.
Well, you said, yeah, he has to stay in position, because I've noticed that Solo Troll's also got a stone-cutting sword, so he's shredding even more protections from them. And Gaijay going into a crit-based build with the Rage. We don't usually see it. We usually see Hunters go into Devourer's Gauntlets, and then it's a bit more of attack speed. If they do go a crit item, it is going to be the Fail Knot more often than not. But this time, it's going to be the Blood Forge and the Rage, as I did point out before. Though, the second that the Nemesis got a few basic attacks on the Ymir, the second the Tallow Assault comes out, those crits are going to be basically doing true damage to anyone who's been targeted by the combo of the Solo and Jungle from Spree.
It's an interesting build, right? Like, it's very much got that mage kind of a vibe to it. Normally we see things like this being picked up by Neats, but Oceans, once again, in an ocean load of trouble. He's going to get stunned out there and caught down by the River's Rebuke. Ultimate coming through from Nemesis, forced to pop that ultimate. Up into the cavalry charge goes Heed. Now the rest of the team is collapsing into Hugs and Kisses. There's a Grasp of Death to stop everyone from getting out. Fields of Love come through as well. Now Blugan in a bit of trouble. He's going to be the first to fall, but Oceans should be very close behind. He's going to do just that. Heed takes credit for yet another kill, and Spreed and Hugs and Kisses look like they could be looking to back off. Primitive stepping forward, though, looking to do a little bit more damage, and he does so. Sneezes on Heed just a little bit. Chronic lurking around this corner here, but this seems to be the ebb and flow of these fights, right, AJ? The get-together for this big team fight, one kill happens, potentially either way, and then they all kind of back off and look for an objective, which is exactly what's happening with this Pyro.
It's got a bit of an EU vibe to this game, and I think we've been sent through a loop here. I think every single name has been changed for NA players, and then we are actually looking at a European game here. We've been just thrown through a loop by the lead casters here as they've set up the schedule for us.
Definitely, we're in some sort of mirror dimension where NA is slow paced, but Gaijay baiting Kirimi into a wrong position, and Fire Giant is going to claim very much a large chunk of his HP bar. Gaijay is going to put another kill into his pocket, and with that, they're not going to settle for Fire Giant, for Pyromancer rather. They're going for the full hog. Fire is started up here, already about half HP. The rest of Hugs and Kisses are lurking around the corner, but without their assassin, not sure if there's much that they can do, but Spree don't want the Fire Giant, they want the fight! Oceans once again picked out of position. Back onto the Fire Giant they go with another pick under their belt. Chronic this time, the one looking to step forward, does get a little bit of a heal from the Beehive there, but Fire Giant sitting on about a quarter. Fields of Love coming through, DPS has stopped, Cavalry Charge comes through, the stun is going to be good onto Chronic, and whilst he's getting chased out by Heed, Spreed are going to go back, finish the Fire Giant, and back away.
Brilliant Fire Giant there from Spreed. They dance with the health bar a bit, they wait until people just step a tiny bit too much forward, and then all of a sudden it's a 4-man collapse onto them. Not 5-man. Bluegan doing what he can from a distance, but keeping the Fire Giant leashed so they keep the progress on that DPS as much as possible. And once it seems like enough people are too far away to really contest, all of them snap back to the Fire Giant and recontinue, and they do the exact same plan over and over again until they get the Fire Giant. Beautiful play. They're rewarded with the Fire Giant, rewarded with the Pyromancer, and rewarded with their first lead of the game. Don't forget, they've been behind in gold. Solo Troll's been behind this entire game. But right now, it feels like Spree do have the momentum in their favor. As you can see, the gold lead does favor them. The experience difference completely even. And it does come down to two things: shred and sustain. Spreed's comp has both of those, whilst Hugs and Kisses does not. And it's really difficult to fight into a composition that has this much sustain.
Discipline, I think, is a good word to describe how Spreed look right now. They were very clear, concise. Let's push them off. We'll get a kill if they come too close. Back to the Fire Giant. We'll make sure that they'll not come any closer to the Fire Giant. Back to the Fire Giant. Making sure that they're not really giving Hugs and Kisses any quarter as they run down this left-hand side. The Tier 1's already been claimed, and Heed has no trouble tanking up this tower so far. The healing still gonna be good, as by the looks of things, no anti-heal being built on the enemy team. Just a Divine Ruin. In fact, for the River's Rebuke is gonna come through. There's the Grasp of Death as well. Spreed looking like they could be on the back foot here a little bit, but healing is still going to be good. Fields of Love comes through to separate out the team fight. Now SOT caught in a bad spot. Primitive going to take credit for that kill alongside his jungler. Now teleporting through the wall goes Gaijay. Up into the 9 realms goes the jungler. He's going to land back down. Primitive falls, but Gaijay is going to pay for it in blood. Oceans now as well taking a spill alongside Renjaru. Heed takes credit for that once again. Now it's 1v3 Chronic trying to fight for his life back to his base. He should do so with ease. He'll get out fine, but Spreed walk away with 3 kills under their belt. But I think it's a victory for Hugs and Kisses, who managed to take Fire Giant off of Solo or Troll and Gaijin.
Not just the fact that they take Fire Giant off them, but they take them off the map so they can't push down the Phoenix anymore. They were gearing up for a Phoenix siege there, with the fact that they have, as I said before, the sustain with the Mocha and the Guan Yu. It would have been very easy for them just to dip in, dip out, and take that Phoenix, but instead, without any real DPS, they're going to have to settle for a Gold Fury. He's not settling for a Gold Fury. He wants blood. He wants to fight. He is the true NA player here.
Heed just looking like exactly what any Guan Yu who's ahead, or even just even, should be looking to do. He's using that ultimate, making sure nobody wants to come anywhere near whatever he's doing, whatever his team's doing, making sure nobody, Krimi, Oceans, Chronic, no way in for them into that Gold Fury, with the Cavalry Charge just threatening to stun them, and the rest of Spreed just behind him. I can imagine Spreed were going, all right, if you hit a stun, we'll drop this Gold Fury, we'll come and we'll just murder some guy.
Yeah, but Guan Yu slightly overcapped on CDR right now with the Breastplate of Valor. It's actually on 40% right now. If he gets a Power Potion, he will be overcapped, or Blue Buff, he will be overcapped. But Breastplate of Valor, 20%, Genji's Guard, 10%, Spirit's Robe, 10%. Sitting very pretty on max CDR right now. I imagine some point in that build, he might look to sell the Breastplate of Valor for a 10% CDR item, so he then gets full use out of that Power Potion later on. maybe goes in for something a bit more tanky, following like a mystical mail. But again, that remains to be seen in the later portions of the game, as right now, grouping up again from Spreed, they see some towers up on the map, and they are not happy that they are still standing, especially this one that is basically dead already. So just grouping up just to try and get themselves a bit more gold and extend their lead just that fraction more.
Something interesting that I'd like to point out is the placement of the sovereignty on Spreed. It's actually sitting around Spreen's chest at the moment. Mid laner picking up this aura defensive item. What do you think of that?
Well, if you got... Well, I'd like to just analyze that right after this fight. Well, it's going to be Spreed going right on the aggressive straight away, just trapping the Oceans once again. And Oceans, the cannon fodder once more.
Well, he's the first man to fall in pretty much all of these fights, but thanks to him, Hugs and Kisses have managed to find themselves a little bit more time to back off and get themselves into a defensive wall. The tier 2 tower should also fall down here, but that's not the important objective. Luckily, Hugs and Kisses are going to hold on to their Phoenix for now, but Spreed aren't interested in the Fire Bird so much as they are the Fire Giant, which is definitely what they're looking at right now.
There's a bait from Solo or Troll and Heat, though. Look to see if they can pick up anybody like Chronic, Primitive, or Wrongu, but looks like it's going to... Renjaro, sorry, Kirby around the side as well, looking like on the aggressive, but Solo Troll and Heat go aggressive. Solo Troll almost falling down here. Renjaro 1 health. Can he find it? One base count from Guy J, 557. See you later.
Primitive is also going to take a spill there. Guy J manages to claim number 2 on his board, and now it doesn't look like Chronic is going to stick around much as Spreed claim yet another fatality for their side. Hugs and Kisses, they were looking strong in the early game, but Spreed did not care for it much, and, well, you were saying Hugs and Kisses needed to find a way to end this game early, or it was going to fall apart for him, and here we are, 27 minutes in, and Solo or Troll is nearly caught up to Crimmy.
Indeed, and Spreed finally have themselves a 5-man fire giant and an opportunity to take down a Phoenix, Primitive, Renjaro, and Chronic around the 20-second mark on their respawn timers. But back onto that Sovereignty on the side of Spreed. Spreed feels like he has enough damage on that Persephone right now that he doesn't need to build a full, almost glass cannon build, but at the same time is wary of the dive potential coming out from Kirby and Chronic. And if he wants to make sure that the team's just around him as much as possible and that he is as safe as possible, why not get an item that rewards people for being around him? So just give themselves extra protections. You help me, I help you.
I see. So it's bribery then.
Exactly.
Fantastic. We love bribery. Spreed, definitely. Spreen. Spreen definitely going to be reaping the benefits of that. 2-9 on the Persephone in the mid lane at the moment. We've been seeing these grasps of death just doing work, catching people, holding people back, making sure they can't leave, killing them outright. This cage is just so strong at the moment. Persephone definitely deserving of that high pick ban ratio that she has in pretty much every league at the moment, alongside her high ban contemporaries Yamoja and Cupid. You can definitely see why she's so sought after.
Yeah, but this game, it hasn't, again, we discussed this with Aggro yesterday, hasn't been a standout performance from people playing the Persephone. It's been just, yeah, this is a mage pick, she's doing mage things, she's playing well, not playing bad, not costing the team anything, does a couple of flashy plays that no other mage can really do, that proves that that was the best pick possible in that scenario. But I think with Spreed's draft, they could have picked any mage with some good lockdown like an Isis, and they would have had pretty much the exact same effect.
I can see that. However, you know what? Give me consistency any day over someone who makes a flashy play and then goes back to being mediocre. Spreed, though, definitely not looking mediocre, all looking very put together so far this game. They weathered the storm of the early Hugs and Kisses barrage, but now blinking forward two people, Chronic and Ocean, starting to party with a double freeze. Here's the River's Rebuke and the Grasp of the Death, but nothing really going to come out of it until Oceans falls down thanks to that Judgment. All of his protections are gone, and now Fields of Love coming through, trying to stop Spreed in their tracks, but no one really gets stunned out there. Mez just not powerful enough. Chronic trying to run away, turns to try and get the stun, but it's not going to matter. Double kill for SOT. Heat is going to pick one up. Triple kill for Solo or Troll, and now Spreed are going to take that all the way to the bank. Game number 1, 30 minutes in, 10 to 20 kills. Spreed looking very confident and very strong so far.
They don't need a second Phoenix, they don't need a third Phoenix, they just need the one Phoenix, and they just need Oceans to once again step out of position, and all of a sudden the fight's completely over. The big problem with Ymir is just that. He's very pickable, and they had a comp with lots of slows, lots of protection shred, so Ymir basically didn't exist.
Yeah, it's one of those things, you know, we were talking about it earlier, he's got a lot of tools that can really help punish people with no mobility, but he himself is also very susceptible to that same strategy, and they tried to play aggressive under that left Phoenix. I guess they were thinking, right, well, we're probably going to lose this, we have to go for that Hail Mary play, and it just didn't quite pan out for them, so we'll have to wait until Game 2, see if they can adjust their strategy, and see if they can do any better, but we'll have to wait a little bit for that, so ladies and gentlemen, stay where you are. We'll be right back.
Very contested, high kill game number 1 comes to a close, and this time it is Spreed who end up on top. Back and forth, though, throughout this one, unsure of who is going to finally fall the Titan there towards the end, but it was Spreed, and Kiki is with me to tell me exactly how that happens. I mean, there are signs of life, I think, from both teams throughout this game entirely. Moments where the percentage of hugs and kisses winning is probably a little bit higher, but I think we noted that Spreed into that late game was probably going to be feeling a little bit better, so 30 minutes in, their fights were looking good.
Yeah, the issue was just, it's an easier comp to play. You have a bunch of heals, so as long as you don't die, you know, you'll probably be happy. And as you saw, Ymir did end up falling a lot. Even after Kirmi had really good early game ganks,
Right.
Ymir is just too easy to pick off, especially when you have gods like Yamoja and Haim, who buy a lot of time for your team to come in. Then you have the Nemesis, who easily can shred from a distance. So it was just a really rough drafting phase, I'd say.
Man, and I love watching Guy J play when he is at the top of his game, and it looked like he was here in game number 1. It took just a little bit of wind-up time, and then, as we expect with the Heimdall, by the time that late game swung around, he was effectively fighting anyone he wanted to. How much of a difference do you think Heed on the Guan Yu played here in this game?
I think the heals made a big part, and he was usually the one finishing off Ymir because he's in there and no one can really kill him. So he's slowly just whittling away at the enemy's health.
That's right, and did exactly what you want and need Guan Yu to do. Look at the post-game stats here. Pretty indicative of a couple of the guys we talked about. SOT was 3-3-11, I believe, going into that final fight, or 3-3-9, and then added a triple kill right before the Titan ended. So 6-3-11 is where that nemesis would end up. I say thank God, because if we're looking at another draft where a nemesis Persephone Yemoja somehow loses, I don't really know what side of the world we're standing on there, but it does get the win here in game number 1, so that's definitely good to look at. I think looking over at the flip side as well is pretty important here. I think Kirmi actually got off to a pretty good start on the Wheelix, but kind of slowed down there towards the end. Do you think it's a play style choice that you saw there, or there was just enough kind of counterplay to that Wheelix that made it difficult to find on a consistent basis some impact as the game went on?
That's usually what tends to happen with the Wheelix. If you're going for more of an attack speed centered build and not just power, Heartseeker, Brawlers, more ability based, you can eventually late game, you won't have the time to land your autos. So really you want to make sure that if you're splitting them up a bit, but as you saw, Heed's team was always staying really grouped. A Wheelix could never really find a pick.
Right, and then the fall-off was apparent there, as unfortunately Hugs and Kisses fall in Game 1. Picks and bans for Game number 2 will join us on our screen now. So it's time for adaptation. It's time for sticking with maybe what worked for you in Game 1 if you're Spreed, changing up something for Game number 2 here if you're Hugs and Kisses. I think then, it's been the buzzword, the conversation piece that I've been kind of hammering on here because it's still so surprising to me. Do you expect Yemoja, Persephone to make their way through again here, or maybe you consider banning out one or the other?
Glad you said that, because Yemoja's literally on my mind. There we go. Right. I'm so glad, because you can kind of deal with her, but she just has so much in her kit. She has the heals, the shields, the walls. Like, what doesn't she have? Sure, she might not do everything at the best, but she really, her kit, she has it all. It's so situational. And we've seen Blugin has a really good mechanical sense of his supports. So you definitely have to respect him and just ban away his Yemoja.
Absolutely. I mean, it was one piece of a full 5-piece composition that really worked in Game 1, but it was a very big and a very important piece that kind of completed that picture. So I don't think any surprise that Hugs and Kisses take away the Yemoja here. Cupid as well is going to get banned out. So now my mind immediately goes over to the Heimdall, and where that maybe starts to fall here in this draft, because Guy J sort of took that game over as the game went on. So is that now an area, Kiki, where you would throw a second Hunter ban here and then the first wave, or do you think there's enough ways of dealing with this Heimdall that you can maybe look elsewhere?
I think it's too early to say that Heim is worthy of a ban, but the main thing was, since Ymir was just busy getting ganked left and right and dying, they didn't really have the time to put any pressure on Heim. So definitely look for more mobility and just less potential to be ganked. We do see the set, which is going to set up a really aggressive early game for Spree. You can flex that as well 3 ways, so
that's true.
This is good for the draft.
Right, we've seen this set fill many a shoes here over recent sets. Well, that one was really good there. So set first pick, depending on where that one goes, we'll have some more discussion around him later on. Persephone, still available, will make her way through this time over on the Hugs and Kisses sides of things. So how do you combo with that is ultimately the most important question here. Now a couple of picks, Kiki, that were banned out in Game 1. The set, obviously we've touched on him, how he's made his way through now. Nike as well, also faced a ban in Game number 1. A strong pick there, presumably for Chronic out of the solo lane. Suppose there's some flex potential there as well, but what do you think of Nike overall?
Nike's really good. It depends on where they're going to be running her. I do know that Oceans likes to play it. Kirmi runs it sometimes, but it does tend to go over to Chronic. It's going to give you good Brawlers option if you do need to run that in the jungle, because they do have the Guan right now. They have set. They're already starting to stack up that healing. And with that Heim right now, they have a well-balanced comp. So I'm interested to see what Hugs and Kisses picks third.
Well, it's looking like the ROM hover. I'm surprised. I would be surprised if it wasn't this ROM. We've seen a lot of really successful ROM picks here as of late. It won't be the ROM, so instead it's going to be the pivot over to the Erlang Shen. So the intrigue kind of continues here. I suppose if you have to put a roll on both of those right now, the Nike and the Erlang Shen, it'd be Nike solo and then Erlang Shen out of the jungle. I guess is how that normally would break down.
Yeah, I wouldn't really go for a Nike support into healing. I feel like you need more hard CC, especially versus Guan. I know that Ocean's likes gods like Fafnir, you know, things like that. So as long as he's on something safe, I'm going to be feeling happy about their thing. And I know that Kirmi loves Erlang. It's definitely great if you don't have to first pick him, because he can get countered. Cripples are very good against him, but he just applies a lot of pressure, and he can easily run the early game.
And we know, and we've seen at even the SPL level, what the Erlang Shen can do. I think Cherio's gotten, what, a pentakill or two, some quads, plenty of multi-kills there. When that pick is able just to kind of free farm and do his thing, it tends to go poorly for the enemy team. So lots of expectations, I think, put on that pick out of the jungle for Hugs and Kisses. Rom will not get picked. Instead, Rom will get banned in the second wave here by Spreed, as well as the Sobek, Kepri, and Geb. So support-centric. Obviously, both teams still needing a pick, you would assume, out of that support role. So still some strong picks, though, left on the board here, Kiki, to fill that support pool. I think, you know, Ganesh has been a pretty popular pick here this weekend, and Terra for Oceans, that might hit right here and give Hugs and Kisses a good chance for a win.
Yeah, Hugs and Kisses decided to ban out the defensive options, so they already have Set, Guan. Going to be hard to kill if they did pick up a Kepri or Geb. And it looks like they're hovering Fenrir, and Fenrir's definitely a good option into Terra. You have the stun, and she does not have any CC immunity. It's going to feel not that great if she's forced into a Beads. I don't know how I feel about the Scylla. Let's see if they decide to stick with that.
Well, Scylla, I feel like, tends to be how you can kind of set up around her. Obviously, more consistent I'm a Monsters is just going to benefit you in general. But it is going to end up being Scylla for the first time here over in the North American portion of this Wildcards weekend. It does make for an interesting breakdown, though, in that Set, Guan Yu, and Fenrir can kind of flex all over the place there. I'm not going to ask you to kind of predict where they all go, but would you like to see any of these specific picks in any role? Does Fenrir sit better with you out of jungle, out of support? I mean, where would you like to see these picks go?
Where would the Fenrir go? He got nerfed for support.
SOT likes him.
I think he's probably support. Oh, SOT likes him? Okay.
We've seen SOT play Fenrir once or twice. I'm not saying that's definitely where it is. I just know we've at least seen it once or twice. But then, of course, PBM plays Fenrir in support. Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting, I think, to try. I mean, it's very difficult, I think, in a draft like this to kind of break down where things go. Do you think that's something, though, that Hugs and Kisses are trying to figure out? You see a draft phase like this, maybe it's tough to go into a game without knowing where all the picks are going to break down.
They're definitely not sure, but I think you're right on the Fenrir. I think he wants to bully out the Erlang. He's going to be able to compete with him in the early game. And if Erlang cannot get beads, because, you know, he either gets blink or beads. So it's not going to feel great for him if it's a jungle Fenrir. I
suppose that means Set would go over to solo, and then Guan Yu maybe over in support. That'd be interesting, to say the least, there from Spreed. So lots to look forward to, I think, as far as determining where these picks are going to end up going when we jump into game. Hugs and Kisses, do you think they have a draft, though, that can fight back here and tie up the set?
Definitely, yeah. It's much more easy to play. The Terra ult's going to want you to just be, like, mini grouped up, and they're probably just going to W key in there if they can get the lead.
Well, it is time to see if Spreed's interesting draft can take the set. Game number 2 is kicking off now.
Well, we've got some interesting drafts here. I gotta say, I really gotta throw the comp over to Hugs and Kisses. I really like their draft at the moment, but Spreed look like they've got some comfort picks on them, as we see. To confirm the suspicions, Solo War Troll is gonna take the Fenrir into the jungle. We see Heed piloting Set over in the solo lane, and Blugan and Gaijay on the Guan Heimdall. AJ, what do you make of this?
I'm not so sure how I feel about it. You've had a phenomenal performance from Heed last game on the Guan Yu, so why not just give it back to him? You managed to get that pickup for yourself. Set definitely can work in the jungle. Fenris support, one of the most aggressive picks you can possibly take for the support role. Oh, I've noticed something else. Blue gets a man after my heart. He's picked up the Sunder.
Oh, Blugan, no! What have you done, AJ?
Blugan.
I blame you.
Yes.
I blame
Come
you
to
for
the
this.
dark side.
This is your fault. Blugan, well, we'll see how he puts that to use, but I think maybe the reason we see the Guan go over into the Soul lane is maybe to compete with this super push of the Anha Terra. I mean, we were talking last game about Yamoja having one of the best players of a support, but I mean, can you really compete with the Terra? And now that they've hit level 2, Spreed trying to put the screws to Hugs and Kisses, but not really able to find the distance in time. Oceans and Renjaru hide under tower.
I think one of the best reasons to have him over here is the fact that he's got knockback immunity whilst using that Tower of Assault, which means that if he does use that in front of Renjaru as he uses his Impale, it's not going to send him back. I mean, he's not going to clear the way, but out comes Kermi again for a nice early gank.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that Erlangs are made for, and it is really going to pay off. Kermi once again off to a tear. Guy J gets impaled onto a wall and is going to be able to beads it, but definitely not happy about using that relic.
No, he's back to base as Blugan. Nice early first kill for Hugs and Kisses. And they also get Guy J speeds, as you did point out. Nice gank again. Could come out early as a double rotation, but Kirby's going to have to find his way back from base first. Spreen picks up a nice return kill.
I mean, that's what you need for the Scylla, right? We saw Scylla played yesterday, and it was a pick that was chosen. So I'm happy to see that already Spreen is making more use of it this game than it was yesterday in the EU side of things. So hopefully that can translate into some more things for Spreen. Scylla definitely one of those characters that you would prefer an early game lead on.
Exactly. I mean, even if you don't get the early game lead on the Scylla, so long as you're even, you definitely feel like you got the upper hand over the enemy mid laner because you become one of the most powerful late game mages in the game. Especially if you do end up getting a Polynomicon in that build. Root Poly just basically insta-kills most carries because of the 100 free power you get from your passive at level 20. But we were speaking about relics before, about that Blugan's got Sunder. Still shout out to that. But Hugs and Kisses support Oceans. He's managed to pick up the beads as his first relic. They were talking about it on the desk. It would feel kind of awkward, but almost like they needed to for Oceans to pick up these beads, and looks like he agrees.
Yeah, I was just about to point out that the Scylla has a lot of setup for her, but we'll have to talk about it in just a second as Guy J goes offensive. But that nice quick pillar jump away is going to cancel that out, but returning to the scene of the crime, Guy J has that big ultimate that can just really set up Scylla super easily with that nice, easy-to-read targeter when they land back down. Blugan's got the pretty decently sized AoE stun. You've got SOT with the Ooga Booga carrying you back into the I'm a Monster. You know, she's got some really good setup here. And I feel like one of the hardest things to kind of get around with playing Scylla at a competitive stage is everyone knows how to juke around it. You know, you got to really work hard for those I'm a
Yeah,
Monsters.
left hand side. Guy J is on a lot of trouble. He can't get through his teleport glyph in time. Renjaru, recipient of kill number 2, and it comes down to the fact that he had no beads.
SOT still looking for the return kill, though. He did it last time. Can he manage to pick it up this time? Oceans making good use of that beads, and that is why we see Terra pick up those cleansing relic.
Chronic low over on this right-hand side, but it's going to be A-okay. He's going to return some of that damage with that rend. He'd again pushing up aggressive, but because he's pushed up past this halfway point of the lane, look who's decided to make a rotation. It's none other than Kirby, fresh off a nice assist over on the other side of the map. Looks like he might be able to find a kill here. Good use of beads from Heath. Kingslayer is burned to the last possible second, and Chronic's got to feel good about that.
Chronic does burn the blink, though, which I feel is maybe a tad bit unnecessary. Sure, it helps him secure the kill. Like, there's no doubt that Heat is getting away in that situation. He even pops the Kingslayer to try and make his grand escape. So the blink definitely helped secure it, but whether or not they get the kill without it is yet to be seen. But I suppose better safe than sorry, am I right?
Yeah, I suppose it is, but the fact that they got the Kingslayer ultimate on that right-hand side is huge. It means that he has no real kill potential against Chronic for the next minute and a half. It also means that Solo Troll really can't come over to this side of the map to help him get that kill potential. Solo Troll needs to find something around the rest of the map because he's tried to be active. The only thing he's really forced is one kill in mid and some beads burns, whilst Kermi, he's again picked up right where he wanted to start from in the last game and has just gone on the offensive.
I feel like both of these junglers yet again have almost mirrored their playstyles. Last time it was the Awilix Nemesis with the early game into late game being the 2 pinnacle points with a little dip in the middle, but this time around Kami on Erlang, who doesn't really have a low point. If you could consider it, I suppose it would also be that middle game section where he's kind of not quite having the items that he needs, but still doing a fair amount of damage. But Solo Troll, Fenrir definitely finds his impact in that early game, which he's looking like he could try and be flexing into this mid lane, but gets spotted out by walking over a ward, so he's not quite going to be able to find anything in that mid engagement just yet. But the Fenrir definitely has that early game feel and kind of has to translate into that tankier playstyle later on if he wants to make the same kind of an impact.
Well, there's really many different ways you can go with the Fenrir, sorry. You can go into that tankier sort of build if you wanted to, as he engages on Oceans once again. You can go into just a pure DPS damage build, or you could go into more of a hybrid attack speed build, thanks to the fact that you do have a lot of extra power coming out from your Howl, your Seething Howl. It is one of the strongest stims in the game. It gives you power, gives you some extra life steal, and that power then translates into your other abilities. It's fantastic, and I think that if you can make good use out of the ability, you elevate yourself from a good Fenrir to a great Fenrir.
I must just be in that first category, or maybe probably a bad Fenrir player. I just know how to press 4 and consume nutrients. That's my favorite move as the big doggy woof woof, and he'd consuming a blue buff right here. Not really feeling that pressure from the Kingslayer. No real engagements happening over on that right-hand side since. So not really capitalizing off of that ultimate burn is Hugs and Kisses.
No, and that's got to be good news for Heed, because now he's got the potential to fight back should Chronic and Kermi come back over to this side of the map. Attack speed boots built on for the jungler for Hugs and Kisses, and looks like he might be going into a stone-cutting sword. I think Solo Troll's going to be going for the exact same build here, and that is indeed finished up for Kermi. Rep buff going to be dropped down here by Spreed, who do find themselves once again in this early game at a deficit, although not as much as it was in the last game. I believe the deficit about this point was around 2,500 gold as Hugs and Kisses took complete control over the map. Experience is completely even, and gold only at 1,000. The experience being even is the big adjustment from this game to the last one. Because don't forget, Solo Troll was down 2 or 3 levels at one point.
Yeah, he was down 2 or 3 levels for pretty much the entire mid-game down from Kermi, and I think, for sure, it's definitely a better look for them, and kind of a scary one for Hugs and Kisses. I mean, if Spreed could come back from that deficit from last game, what are they going to do when they're only slightly behind? Oceans is about to find out. That's not the ultimate. A little bit early. Solo Troll baits it out, and the grasp of death isn't going to hit anyone because Solo Troll was up in that ultimate alongside his solo laner. Now, abilities are flying, and Kermi is going to be the first one to fall down. Guy J sends another one up into the sky. Spreen picks up Primitive on his own, and up and down goes Solo Troll. Oceans is going to take a spill, but now here comes the rotation from Anha. Ultimate is going to do a lot of damage, ripping through those health bars, but unable to find anyone. SOT, the only casualties on the side of Spreed, in favor of 3 kills to Spreed. Hugs and Kisses. That's gotta hurt.
And that was a fantastic play by Solo Troll. Jumps in, gets the stun, immediately uses the ultimate. Oceans, instinctively you think, oh, it's just going to try and chop me trade away, so let me just use the beads. Baited by Solo Troll, who does not go for the grab straight away. Forces out the Terror ultimate, and then again a good play by Spreen afterwards. Doesn't use the Armor Monster straight away onto Oceans, but instead waits until the Bluegan Cavalry Charge finishes and hits 2 people with the Armor Monster in the form of Primitive and Kermi, and that just sets up Guy J on his rotation from the top side to get the insane rotation value.
Yeah, it was beautifully played there by Spreed. I mean, the only thing that was even bad about it was SOT falling down, and is it really all that bad? I mean, he had used all of his kit. He wasn't really going to do much else in the fight, and it really paid off for them. You know, I'd happily give my life as the Fenrir there in that situation to secure those 3 kills, which is exactly what they did. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to find anything off of it, so they're still in that little bit of a gold deficit, but they've come up from about 1.5k now to just about, just under 1,000. So, Spreed, they've got a smile on their face.
Yeah, they've clawed back some of the lead, but it still doesn't feel like they have the pressure around the map. I mean, yes, it sort of feels like they have the onus on them on the duo side of the map, given that they've been the ones to make the aggressive engagements ever since that first gank by Kermi. But over on the solo side, Chronic is just completely fine doing whatever he wants and rotating whenever he wants, because it feels like Heed offers no threat to him whatsoever right now.
It's one of those things, right? To parrot what Aggro said yesterday, Set has become, his whole identity has kind of been based around this very poke-oriented playstyle, right? You use the skewer because it's on such a low cooldown, and it can do so much damage to just continually poke your enemy until you feel confident enough that you can just walk in wherever they are and kill them, right? So when you're not in lane and he can't really poke you out, you're pretty much free to do whatever, because Set really isn't going to start really swinging until that mid to late kind of area, which we are starting to edge into. So once he gets that second relic, I wouldn't be surprised to see him start to rotate around.
What do you think that second relic's going to be? My money's going to be on Blink, so we can look to engage it onto Ranjara and Primitive a bit more. I would like to see Sunder, but Bluegate's already got the Sunder. They already have that covered for Chronic's ultimate. He needs to upgrade it though, I feel, just so they can burst him down a bit quicker. The fact that he walked out of base without upgraded is a sin in itself.
I gotta agree. I gotta agree with the Aegis. The Blink. I think it's probably the right call for Heed. He's got the beads to really deal with most of the pressure from Hugs and Kisses. The ultimate from Primitive, Kermi's stuff, even the big slow from Chronic. So I think the Aegis isn't really a big concern for him, so the Blink probably going to be the big one, as Gold Fury started up here by Spreed 12 minutes into the game, but Hugs and Kisses aren't going to let it go for free this time. The Terror Wall is going to come through and make sure that Spreed are discouraged, but SOT jumping in here. He might really pay for that. He's going to get pinned against the wall. Kermi comes in with the knock-up, and down falls SOT. Heed now all up in the face of Hugs and Kisses, trying to find the damage onto Ranjara, but not quite going to find it as Chronic slowing them down. Now, Grasp of Death is going to be good, but luckily, Beads and Bifrost available for Guy J, so he's going to be able to teleport out nice and quickly there. Hugs and Kisses surging forward. Going to pressure Spreed out of the Gold Fury pit, and now working their way through the Gold Fury.
Just very odd dive there by Solo Troll and Heed, almost on a different wavelength to the rest of the team, and that's going to cost them not only their lives, but the Gold Fury, and what looked like a very even game has now just exploded into a lead for Hugs and Kisses off of the back of just a very odd decision.
Just unfortunate. Yeah, like, Spreed, as you said, they didn't really feel back in the driver's seat per se. They felt like it was competitive, right? Obviously, they were getting these kills, they were winning these team fights, but they didn't feel ahead. They just kind of felt like they were fighting pretty much even. And as you said, yeah, a little bit of a misplay from SOT and Heed, or maybe just a bit of a communication muck-up there. And Hugs and Kisses able to just completely capitalize it. I love the communication from them, and now not only are they going to get Gold Fury, but a Pyromancer as well. Spreed not in a position to contest.
The only person around there was Solo Troll, but the second he jumps in, the second they back off for just stun and probably look to kill him afterwards. Had to wait for the rotation from Spreen to try and get a crusher over the wall. Unfortunately, just a bit too late on that rotation. Primitive going to be poked out a bit by Blugan, but he's going to be fine with that. Persephone, of course, can heal up herself with her plants, and also has Terra around in the form of the Monolith heal, just to sustain a bit more.
And that's another point at Terra. Like, let's talk about that. Hugs and Kisses have probably the most low-key healer who, like, on paper, you look at the ability, right? You look at the monolith, and you think, that's not that much healing. But then in practice, it's one of those abilities that you almost don't feel like you need to build lifesteal against until you see it completely regen an entire team with, like, 2 uses.
Exactly, and it's not just the fact that they have the Monolith heal, but they also have Lotus Crown now built up promotions, but also the Earthen Fury ultimate coming out from Terra gives some sustain to those that are affected by it on her team, gives them some damage mitigation, but also does some good damage return. Speaking of which, Primitive is looking like it's going to fall down here.
He's looking like wolf food to me, AJ, and another really beautiful use of the ultimate from Solo Troll there, waiting out Primitive. I feel like this is going to have to be the way he plays it. Earthen Fury is popped. SOT is going to be able to take credit for the kill before she's able to heal up. Popped a little bit late for my taste, and we're going to pay for it with that tier 1 tower here. Spreed surging forward now, not quite done yet. Looking for this tier 2 as it's only really Renjaru under here trying to defend it, but here comes Kurumi. Over the wall comes SOT though, he's 2 levels behind, forced the beads out. That ultimate from Kurumi, who's going to get that ultimate back and dashing forward now. Gaijay gets knocked up and deleted by the slew of abilities from H&K. Kurumi now searching forward as well. Bluegan takes a spill. Spreen popped up into the Iron Monster to try and get away, and it looks like he should be successful, but Hugs and Kisses, what can they do now? They can definitely pick up this tier 1 tower, and Heed looking for Kurumi in the right-hand side.
This is the fight everyone wants to see. It's Set versus Erlang Shen. And looks like both are just going to trade out and be A-okay. They do get Kingslayer out, so that does come out as a win for Hugs and Kisses in that entire engagement, given that Kurumi used his ultimate earlier under the tower to save the life of his ADC. Over towards the right-hand side, Gold Fury's still down for the next minute and a half, so Hugs and Kisses can't translate that good fight win into anything more, other than just maybe a bit of tower pressure over on this left-hand side. So it's not all doom and gloom for Spreed there, who had a good start to the fight, but then petered off when they just tried to extend their lead a bit too much.
It's a moral victory more than anything, I think. Hugs and Kisses there. Felt like potentially they lost a little bit of momentum in the last fight, but it keeps being a back and forth between these two teams. Spreed win a fight, then they mess up, and Hugs and Kisses win a fight. Then Hugs and Kisses mess up, and Spreed are able to win one. It's feeling very competitive so far for this set, which I'm loving, and only so far sitting at, 14 kills between these two teams, so relatively slow-paced for how these two guys normally like to play.
Yeah, it seems like both of them, well, when you have two teams that like to play very aggressive early game, fighting you at your speed buff at minute 2 sort of play styles, when they come up against each other, you expect that it's just going to be a bloodbath, but this is just proven to me that it's not. Both teams sort of dialed it back down a bit, almost expecting to try and lay the trap for the other team, and you get this sort of odd scenario where both of them play the objective game. And right now, in Game 1, that was entirely Spreed, who managed to sneak away a Gold Fury for free, almost snuck away a Pyromancer for free, played the Fire Giant extremely well. But now it's Hugs and Kisses' turn to see if they can do the objective game and do the dance with the Gold Fury, as they are doing right now.
Yep, pulling it now. It looks like Spreed have a little bit of distance to cover before they're really in position to contest it, but they're going to make it up nice and quickly. However, Chronic caught out of position up into the sky. He goes. Gaijay waiting for him when he comes down, but Spreed also in a little bit of trouble, is able to sick him away. Solo Troll is going to pick up the first kill of the fight, but Bluegan coming back in. I'm a monster! Picks up one. Spreed from nearly out of the fight. He's going to fall down before he's able to hit Renjaru with that tick, though. So Renjaru is going to claim his life instead. Heed finally making an impact now in these fights. Gaijay is able to pick up Primitive, and now Set consuming his way through the rest of the team. Gaijay picks up a double, and that's going to be deicide for Spreed. Heed and Gaijay still alive, and it looks like they're going to attempt this Gold Fury right now.
I think they could do this if they just do what is the leash tactic. One person goes to one side, one person goes to the other. Heed taking up as much as he can, and Spreed do destroy the Oni Fury, looking for even more, looking to evade onto some buffs here. That fight completely won by Heed, in my opinion. Just allowed to free cast that entire fight. Just waits until the fight really kicks off, waits until a lot of ultimates, especially that Earthen Fury goes off. Then all of a sudden, bang, jumps in with Kingslayer, gets 1 kill. Manages to set up another 2 further for Gaijay. Set was just unbelievable there, and the fact that he got to free cast is criminal.
Listen, man, I said it. As soon as Set gets into this late game, he's going to be an absolute monster. And that's exactly what he did. You know, we haven't really seen he do much so far this game other than dying over in that right-hand side. But finally, he's got some items online. He's got the levels behind him. And Set is finally able to do what Set really wants to do. And that is press 4, build up as many sand clones as he possibly can, and then throw them all at you like he's throwing foam noodles that have piercing weapons on the edge of them. You got my point. Spreed, get a pyromancer. Shut up, AJ.
You were about to say sandcastles, weren't you?
Nope. That's incorrect. Why would I say sandcastles when it was so clearly sand clones? Fire Giant is being done. Talk about that. Let's talk about Fire Giant.
Yeah.
That's currently being done now by Spreed.
He can take fire.
Yeah, let's, Spreed starting up Fire Giant already on half HP SOT. I was thinking maybe he was going to do a bit of a shake and bake there, but he's instead going to take him straight to Gaijay, who yeets him up into the air. Spreed and Gaijay waiting for him on landing and up into the top side. Other members of Hugs and Kisses are going to be there. Jumping in now on the left-hand side. He tries to find Chronic, but he's still alive. Spreed dumped everything that they had on to Chronic, and Chronic's still able to limp away because Oceans wasn't there with the Sunder. Sorry, not Oceans there with the Sunder. Guan Yu was not there with the Sunder, and that is devastating.
And he's also not upgraded it. That is one of the big things. If you buy Sunder, you upgrade it because then it becomes the best relic in the game. And Kermie is the most dead person on the map right now.
Correct, as he is the only one, and now the entirety of Spreed are going to press B at the exact same time. Hugs and Kisses, now's your window. They're all back in base. Where are you? Do that Fire Giant, baby.
Yeah, if you see all of them back, just let them all back in front of you and do the objective. You know that he doesn't have teleport because no solo laner really is going teleport anymore. And you can see his relics, you know he's got beads and you know he's got thorns. So you can very easily start to do it. Yes, you don't have Kermie there, who's one of the better objective DPSs on your team. But it's still possible, it's still a risk you can take. And if it doesn't work out, you just back off and wait for the reset. Wait for Kermie to come back up alive.
Yeah, well, they're not going to do that. In fact, they're, Spreed are just running into the enemy jungle, but look at that health shield from Chronic! How is he able to survive there? Immunes out the ultimate from Gaijay, and is able to limp out along that top side with a slither of HP. Spreed, though, they take the win, they take the TKO, and now they're looking their attention back over towards the Fire Giant. Charging in, though, is Terra. Ocean's trying to make as much of a nuisance for them as you possibly can as Hugs and Kisses come in with a swoop.
They steal it!
And they pick it up. That's going to be Fire Giant around the belt of the Chaos side team, but he's not going to let it go for free. He's going to pick up Kimmy up in that top side. Primitive, though, he's not going to let that go for free. Set falls down, and now back on the offensive go Hugs and Kisses. Primitive picks up a second kill. Gaijay now under some duress, tries to make it back. Triple kill for Persephone. She's going to find Gaijay as well. Now Hugs and Kisses, Fire Giant well tethered to their waist, are going to look for some more things around the map. Hopefully clear up these towers, and maybe even look for a Phoenix push.
I think that was Desert Fury that managed to steal the Fire Giant there, but they don't care what Staller, all they care about is they've got 4 members with Fire Giant around their waist, and Spreed, they have 2 members who don't. So, tier 2 tower gonna fall down in the mid lane. One last base to actually do it, someone take it, there we go. Finally taken down. Meanwhile on the right hand side, Renjaru doing his best low-key impression and taking a split push. Down goes that tier 2 tower as well, extends the gold lead even further to just over, or just under 5,000 gold, should I say. Gold Fury is spawning in 15 seconds, they've timed their backs perfectly to go over to that side of the map and take that objective. And given that it's the regular Gold Fury, I'd imagine they want to take that down as soon as possible to start the recycle onto the Oni and Primal Furies.
Definitely looking for that Oni Fury in particular, looking, just those waves can be so useful for pushing down these objectives, which, I mean, hey, if I have Fire Giant buff, that's exactly what you want to do, right? You want to clear out as many of these towers as you can, look to extend that gold lead, get as much of it in your pockets as possible, buy your items, and then even after the Fire Giant is done, by that point, 25 minutes into the game, you know, you're going to be so far ahead with potentially your boots sold at that point, at the very least, getting your blessing out of your inventory and getting another item there. So Hugs and Kisses are really going to start putting Spreed under some pressure, making them feel that pinch.
Well, Tier 2 tower on the left-hand side going to fall down as well. The gold lead extends even further as Spreed find themselves more and more on the back foot. And instead of looking to push down the Phoenix right away, they're going to spend their ever-mounting amount of gold in their pockets. Lock themselves up a bit. Look at that just dip on that graph. 6,500 experience difference in favor of Hugs and Kisses, when about 5 minutes ago, they were the ones behind about 3,000.
Yeah, well, like we were talking about earlier, AJ, it was so back and forward for the first maybe 15 or so minutes of this game, 17 minutes or so, and then Hugs and Kisses get one good fight, and then another good fight, and then another good fight, and they break this cycle of it being Spreed win, Hug win, Spreed win, Hug win, and they just use that to completely snowball this lead, and now, as you said, 7.5k up. They're just, yeah, they are storming the gates, or at least looking to storm the gates of this Order side team, as Pyromancer is going to fall for that last extra little bit of utility, helping them get out of base a little bit quicker, stripping away the entirety of Hugs and Kisses' jungle, and with Fire Giant running out relatively soon, I think Hugs and Kisses' best play here might actually be to just sit back and relax until Fire Giant comes back up again.
They could do. I mean, the Fire Giant will fall off them in about the next minute and 18 seconds. So you're looking at about 28 minutes, 29 minutes on its respawn. They could wait for a minute after it respawns for it to be the Enhanced Fire Giant, but at which point Spreed might feel a bit more adventurous, might feel like they want to come out and contest the Fire Giant, maybe even try and take it themselves. So it is a dicey game that they would be playing by doing so. It's all up to them just to decide how they want to play it out, though.
Well, to look at Hugs and Kisses' previous experience, I'm definitely in the wrong about my guess as to what they should do, because knowing these players, they want to go all in. They've got the lead. They've got pretty much a level or two in every single role. However, actually 3 members of Spreed catching up and hitting that level 20 mark. So it's mainly just the gold difference that's really playing into it here. Boots still on every single member of Hugs and Kisses, but as I said, all those blessings are off of the board, but blessings still very much on there for the Spreed roster. So at least one item ahead are Hugs and Kisses at the moment, which might not sound like a lot, but that power spike is going to be absolutely massive as the Fire Giant comes up in about 8 seconds, and Hugs and Kisses look poised to start this dance.
I'd also like to point out that Blugan has finally done the sensible option and upgraded his Sunder, so chance for them to come back into some of these fights if they manage to blow up one of the tanks very quickly. And their choice so far has been Chronic, the only one without beads. And don't forget, as you can see, as brought up, increase the damage taken by 20% for 5 seconds. That 20% increase can help them just burn through this Nike.
But the timing is really important on that Sunder, right? You either want to use it before she has a chance to do anything, so she doesn't get to use the ult at all, or you have to wait until Chronic is forced into a position where he needs to use that ultimate, and then you hit him with the Sunder, and then hit him with the Death Nail. So it's got to be a bit of a tricky situation. Blugan has to make sure that he's within sight and range of Chronic at all times, and even then, it can be really dangerous to group up around Chronic that much, because even if you Sunder the shield away, the slow is still going to be impactful and still going to set up people like Private and Renjaru to really mess with the rest of the team. So it's kind of precarious for Spreed if they really do want to focus down Chronic.
He'd being the one in the front line right now, rather than Blugan, who's going to be staying back just to try and help heal for Guy J a bit. Don't forget, Solo Patrol is the one that's been engaging most of these fights here for Spreed, and the fights have gone okay, some wins, some losses in them. Maybe they could think about as a bit of a switch up, have Blugan be the one start to engage the fight, but his CC does take a while to really channel and come out in terms of that stun. So they are looking for the instant fight. It has to be solo or troll. They're looking to just try and spread them out a bit more and then pick somebody up from that ultimate. It's gonna have to be solo or troll and Bluegen together.
Good little dash away from Bluegen as the rest of the fight looks like it could start to bubble up here. Frenzy's popped on the left-hand side and Solo Troll forced to ult away. Desert Fury was popped in trade though, so not a total loss for Spreed so far.
Wow,
they don't have that big secure objective, but Spreen still holding on to I'm a Monster, which is what Hugs and Kisses have got to be wary of at the moment if they want to try and pull this Fire Giant. Half health now on EFG. Now Chronic going in. There's the ultimate being popped, but Bluegen already super low. Guy J already super low. Forced to Bifrost away. Hugs and Kisses. They now have about 2 TKOs, and the rest of Spreed are very low. They try and push in. Hugs and Kisses are going to have a pretty okay time at taking the fight, in my opinion. Fire Giant already falling down to half HP. He's swinging around on this left-hand side. Spreen still has that ultimate available to him. Crush is going to come out and do a little bit of damage and maybe discourage Hugs and Kisses, but not quite. Bluegen charging in now. Cavalry charge. 1,000 damage left. Primitive is going to be able to pick it up. 3 kills the way of Hugs and Kisses. Oceans is going to claim credit for one of them, and now Spreen trying to find something. I'm a Monster not quite on the mark, and now only Guy J and Spreen left alive to defend against a fully Fire Giant team. This is a rough situation unless Guy J can get something else here, but with that Impale being that strong, he's not going to be able to do much.
I think that might be game. Chronic looking to just chase down Spreen here. Gets the beats quite early. Doesn't get the slow from that, but doesn't matter. He's just looking for the damage. And damage has been dealt. Hugs and Kisses going to take us to a game number 3.
There's something almost comedic about Nike beating down the right-hand Phoenix with a big squeaky toy on a stick. The little squeak sound effect really does it for me when he's trying to take that down. Only man left standing here is Bluegen, but no ultimate available for the Cavalry Horseman. So that is going to be game number 1. Game number 2, sorry, for Hugs and Kisses overall, but their first game back into this. And now, AJ, we're down to the wire. It's a best of 1 from here on out. And anything goes. This is probably the tensest situation you can be in because surprise comps can come out of nowhere.
Exactly, and I think if I'm Spreen, I'm not exactly happy with how both games have gone. Because both games, we've just been battered early. And something has to change for them. Something has to just click and go, right, we give Solo Troll this pick, and we don't give Kermie this pick, and we just make sure we're pushing him as constantly as possible, because if they don't win that early game in the next game, I sort of fancy Hugs and Kisses to take it.
Potentially, but we have seen that Spree definitely aren't afraid of going deep and bringing back from a pretty hefty deficit, so we'll have to see. But Game 3 is always the most exciting one in my mind, AJ. Only one left to go. We'll have to wait a few minutes to see it. We'll be right back, ladies and gents.
On to game 3 we go after Hugs and Kisses are able to bounce back here in game number 2. A couple swings and misses maybe from Spreed here in this game as far as their picks go. Kiki is going to tell me exactly what happens here, though. Kiki, I mean, you look at what happens here in game 2, and similar to game 1, I think there are some moments where Spreed probably feel like they had a pretty good chance to win, but then there's just massive swing in that mid-game, and Hugs and Kisses never really looked back.
Yeah, we'd love to see a game 3, so I'm glad that we're going to be able to see some more action. Chronic was doing a really good job in team fights. He would always be absorbing at least 2 people's times. They were honestly using like half of the Fenrir ults onto Chronic, but it was never quite enough. He was always able to live. Ocean's doing a really good job on the Terra ults, though, making sure that he applied that onto Chronic. And Ren was just playing lights off this entire game, constantly bullying, not letting Scylla free cast. Really good job on them.
What do we think about this on her pick now? Because it's a couple of times we've seen this locked in over the last couple of sets, over the last couple of weeks of competitive play. It's maybe something that's starting to become a little bit more viable. Do you think on her now is kind of pocket pick, flex here and there? Is he really in that conversation for hunters that can be very viable in most situations?
Honor's always been really interesting. He doesn't have an attack steroid, so sometimes he doesn't quite do enough. I think it's really just dependent upon the individual and how they can use their pillars and just making sure that you get really good stuns. Ren was able to peel for his team, and sometimes if you have a carry that can peel, then that means that the rest of you are going to live, right?
Right, especially if it's in a semi-aggressive way sometimes. I mean, you talk about Jingwei, her ability to self-peel, a lot of that is defensive if you don't want to use the airstrike in an offensive way. Renjaru has the peel that can then not only get himself out to safety, but set it up, or on her rather, can then set up for the rest of his team with some of that self-peel as well. So not surprising that he's towards the top of those damage charts there. So we move on to kind of conversation pieces around Game 3. I still hone in, I think, on SOT here. We saw a great Nemesis game, admittedly, in Game 1. I think interesting to pivot over to that Fenrir. We were wondering really where it would fit, how that pick would look, how it would work. Maybe a kind of return to tried and true and proven here in Game 3 for SOT would be the right move.
I don't think it was the worst pick, but I feel like the build is a bit weird. He went stone cutting with Warrior Tabby, so he didn't really have attack speed to benefit with that item. And when you're up against an Erlang, he's going to be chopping you down at the same time. So Kirmi did do a good job at setting up some early game pressure. I think he's got first blood both games so far. So we'll see if we follow that trend.
And we figured that the jungle would be the avenue for a lot of that early pressure. Certainly has here in games 1 and 2. Let's see what picks and bans for game number 3 have in store for us. If there are these big pivots now, you know, it's kind of data collection through games 1 and 2 and deciding what has and hasn't worked for you. Now it's really best foot forward. I mean, there's a world where maybe Spreed feel like they're playing with some sort of house money. You know, obviously we want to win, but if we don't, we can still kind of tweak our efforts moving on in here into game number 3. Hell is going to get taken away again. I imagine there's an Aphrodite ban somewhere along the line here. Do you think that this is playing against Hugs and Kisses specifically, or are Hell and Aphrodite in general just that good at the moment?
I think the Afro is one of those gods that if you let her play the game and get to like level 20, it just feels so unbearable because she's going to keep one person alive. You have the immunity. You have to play everything so perfectly to try to kill an Afro. And the Hell, that is one of Primitive's top characters. So you definitely want to just get them something a little less comfortable. They're gonna Hugs and Kisses is gonna go with the Yemoja ban, sticking to that. I agree, and looks like we'll be seeing the Nike ban. Chronic definitely created so much space and was able to give his team the time to kill the enemy. And
we saw a great example of that at the end of the game there, where Chronic just kind of jumps on Spreen, who's on Scylla, and beads and all, and I'm a monster and all. There's literally nothing that Spreen had the ability to do. So Nike absolutely in a very strong spot right now. Sundering Spear or not on the enemy team, Nike still kind of ran through Spreed there in game number 2. Raw's going to get left open for the first time here in this set. Ra will be first picked for the first time in this set. Is Ra good enough to warrant all these bans and all these, and now the first pick is really the question of the day. Where do you land on the pick?
Well, it's really interesting because he got buffed and all of a sudden he's like a top pick, top ban,
right.
But Ra still has the same problems in which that his heal is just an area, right? So he doesn't really have a jump, and if you are getting W keyed at way too hard, then the Ra heal doesn't always come into effect. We do see an Erlang, so that's going to give Kirmi the option for aggression. And to be a Ra standing your heal while an Erlang is chopping you down, it does not always feel good. But it can go both ways because the Ra heal does give protections. Cthulhu, right. I do know that they do flex that. That might be support, actually. I did talk to Oshas about that a couple times.
All right, interesting. So some insider information there, maybe. That Hugs and Kisses enjoy flexing this pick around. And important to note, similar to Ra getting let through, now we're going to get a look at Cthulhu here in this set, whether it's in support or over in solo. That's a whole conversation we had when Cthulhu first came out around where is he best fit, those sorts of things, because we've seen Cthulhu look good in support. He's so difficult to play into, but you get online a little bit faster, maybe out of the solo lane. So we'll see what the remainder of the picks look like here for Hugs and Kisses before we cycle back to that conversation. Kepri's been a popular ban so far, this set as well. And Set is going to get another look here. So Spreed through their first three have some high priority picks in most of those roles. Do you like the way that they've drafted for their first three picks?
Yeah, Spree's comp is definitely just very cookie cutter. You have a healer, you have the mitigations and the revive from Kepri, and then Set's going to be able to do any damage if he goes unchecked. But I'm really digging this Achilles pick up here. I was a bit worried with the Kepri pick, but now we have the execute to go through the Kepri revive. It really just depends on what sort of damage Hugs and Kisses is going to be picking, and Spree's going to have a good chance to ban out some damage dealers from Hugs and Kisses.
Well, at this point, I think the Achilles now being picked kind of confirms Cthulhu over in support, unless we're going to see an Achilles or an Erlang Shen over in support, which I somehow doubt. So it looks like Erlang jungle
they banned
Cthulhu
Terra,
support. That's right. That's right. So I don't know. Spreed obviously are thinking that there is some sort of weird flex going on here by Hugs and Kisses
mid or
with
something,
the
maybe.
Yeah, Cthulhu mid, I suppose. You need the cat cam, absolutely. Yeah, Ramsey is chilling, thank God, right now. The chill pets, we love them, and you've definitely got one back there. Basket in the sun, right? I mean, that's the best spot in the house. You just have the window right there. You just get to hang out and be warm all day. Does Cat have a name? What's
yeah, her name is Patsy. It started off as Patricia, and then it was Patty.
Got it.
But someone joked like chicken patty. I was like, oh no, I don't want.
Well, you can't have
I'm gonna
that,
change
right?
it to Patsy now. No, yeah, exactly.
Well, somebody told me that Ramsey was like the bad Ramsey, like Ramsey Bolton from Game of Thrones. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but like that guy really sucked in that show. So now I'm wondering if I need to change her name around entirely. I don't know. That's a whole big segue in logistics that'll have to be done behind the scenes. We've seen Rom hovered a couple times, banned a couple times. Now will be picked here in this set. Rom. Presumably to be matched with that Cthulhu there in that lane. If it is indeed Rom Cthulhu in the duo lane, what does that look like to you?
I think that could be a good pressure, perhaps some good kill opportunities. Definitely Spree's going to have to look out for the Kirmi level 2 ganks. It's happened pretty frequently. Although Kirmi did end up dying, I think, both times after his first blood, so it's not always the most beneficial thing to use your time on a gank and then end up dying. You might be better off with a back camp, honestly. But seeing they picked Nemesis and Jing Wei, going to be really hard to kill the targets. It's going to depend on if Ra can be a target or not.
Right. Ra, I mean, if you're able to get back in there, that's the big if, is then you maybe have a good time. But Ra obviously can move around quickly, peel, and heal himself a little bit. Well, plenty of damage, it looks like, for Spreed over there. And if this Nuwa gets locked in, I don't hate that pick out of the mid either. I mean, if you're able to ult out of some engage there, but you're maybe not so sure. What do you think in this pick?
Well, Nuwa is good for applying anti-heal. You'll have that. But when you're getting dove by a Set and Nemesis, Nuwa doesn't really have enough. Like, sure, you can go in the sky and buy time, but Rama's going to be left alone in the back, and you don't really have quite much peel with the Cthulhu support. So it really depends on what sort of things they're going to be doing with the jungle and the support.
So, I mean, maybe it goes without saying at this point, do you think Spreed have the more consistent draft going into Game 3?
Yeah, like the first the first match that they had, it's a much easier draft to just make sure that it's going to form properly.
So what do you think the win condition is here for Hugs and Kisses? What gives them the best chance in getting a win over Spreed?
If they can get Chronic a lead, we've seen that Chronic can create a lot of space, get him ahead on this set, or versus the set, which will also put Kirmi in a good position. I think if Chronic is doing well, then the team will be doing well.
Well, let's wait no further. Spreed versus Hugs and Kisses, Game 3. Let's get it in.
Ooh, boy, is that a new Wa that I see being played by the Primitive himself. I gotta say, personally, I love Nuwa. I think she's quite fun to play. But competitively speaking, AJ, this is a little bit dicey.
Does have a bit of risk here, but if you have a look at the Hugs and Kisses composition, you see that it makes a lot of sense and fits in quite well. You have Oceans on the Cthulhu, Kirmi on the Erlang Shen, and Chronic on the Achilles, all of which to me screams dive, and Renjaru's playing Ram can assist with the dive from the skies as well. That just leaves poor old Primitive by himself. And what's he to do? Just press 4 and assist with the dive himself as well. So it is literally, legitimately just, let's kill Spreen as quickly as possible, the composition.
Right, but if you look on the enemy team, you know, you've got Solo, Troll, and Heat, who are, I mean, pretty much the closest you can get to designated Nuwa murderers. They are just going to run at this Nuwa, and if she doesn't have those clay soldiers up, or even if she doesn't have the shining metal to proc that stun, she's dead meat.
All in all, though, I'd hate to be a mid laner in this game. I think that's the message we're getting across here.
That's a fair point. Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing Oceans piloting this Cthulhu over in the support role, which I think is quite interesting. Don't really see it too much. Personally, I think Cthulhu has better roles to be in, but I mean, when you've got Achilles and Erlang filling up, in my opinion, the other two roles that I would prefer to see Cthulhu in, I don't mind him in this support role, but what do you think he really brings to this lane?
He brings pressure, as you can see right now, because he's got an AoE basic attack and because he's got a nice long-range route. And what's more, because of that pressure that he brings into the wave clear, he can also give you a bit of kill pressure. He's going to use that kill pressure and rotate throughout the jungle. It's going to mean it's a bit earlier that Spreen sees this Cthulhu than if he was going to be in solo lane. But also his ultimate. This is the big part about him being in support, why he's quite effective there. His ultimate is going to be available to everyone, apart from maybe the solo laner, from the very first get-go.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough, and on that ultimate, I do suppose you have that really big heal that can help out in that teamfight situation that also does a pretty decent chunk of damage as well, so definitely look out for Oceans to be swinging around in those teamfights, doing some damage, knocking up some people, and healing his teammates. I suppose another really big benefit to him being in this role is you can justify building into HP a little bit better, which works out a little nicer for Cthulhu when he's going to be this big walking target.
Exactly. He has a bit of help with some damage mitigation in his kit, but even then it's still quite easy to take him down unless he's ulting because of the fact that he's got quite a large hitbox, to say the least. But this game not following the same pattern as the previous two games. Kirmi not made his famous rotation over towards the dual lane before the first purple buff, or second purple buff spawn, should I say. And no kills happen in the first 3 minutes. Again, looks like we're in Europe.
Instead he's decided to move his attention over to this right-hand side, though I think he'd can sense that there's something up. Nothing on the map at the moment in terms of ward coverage, but Kimi finally deciding that he wants to stop using his time up by standing over by that wall, decides to go and help his mid laner out a little bit more. But yeah, here's the gank. Solo Troll looking for it. Has already hit level 5 alongside Spreen, so definitely looking for that ultra slow Ra ult combo. Not going to quite be effective, though, thanks to that deep ward there by Hugs and Kisses. You can see it just to the south side of the Gold Fury pit. And without that, I think we maybe see a double kill here for Hugs, for Spreed, rather. So, just goes to show you wards are so important.
Yeah, I'd say maybe not a double kill, but definitely one kill and a beats force from Ranjaru. So, good option for that ward. The fact that they managed to get away with what would have been a calamitous start for them. And the game still is going to be even. Over on the solo side, again, Heed finding himself in a bit of a disadvantageous position. It seems that Chronic has got the better of him in the laning phase all 3 games now. And most of that has come down to decent matchup choices. I think Heed has been put on the back foot in the previous 2 games because of the matchup. In King Arthur into Guan Yu, about an even matchup. I think the Nike does have a handle on the set for the most part, considering the amount of damage he can put out. Great reaction time there from Gaichi to get his ult off.
Half a second later, and I think we see a dead bird there, but Kiyomi definitely not gonna let that go to waste. He's gonna steal away that purple buff, but Oceans might have to pay for this, you know. He is pulled back in, but luckily Cthulhu's got that very long dash, so he's gonna be just about fine. Spreed, though, are gonna come into conflict with the rest of Hugs and Kisses as Kirimi looking for this red buff once again. Bluegan is gonna give him the pull. The ultimate available for this Erlang Shen. He's gonna waddle straight into that sun drop there from Bluegan. Ra Snipe coming through. Not actually sure if that hit, but Kirimi not looking very healthy. Up into the big form goes Oceans, and Kirimi once again is gonna get out. This mad lad, he is gonna be just fine. Now Heed making that rotation very early on. Renjaru is gonna pay for it. He's gonna fall down. That's gonna be kill number 1 for the solo lane. A Burst Blood goes the way of Spreed, and wow, what a rotation from the solo lane here.
Oh, they're diving this. They're not letting Kirby get away with that.
I mean, listen, Kirby survived that entire time through all of those abilities. I think at that point, if you're Spreed, it's kind of a, you know what? You ate like 3 of our ultimates. Come in.
No, I think it's more of a case of, we see you back into the tower, we've got you surrounded. Knock knock, here's the police.
Come out with your muffins in the air, and the Gold Fury is going to go down as well, which Spreed can spend on as many muffins as their heart desire. Those muffins are going to come in the form of items of violence and defense.
Very strange muffins.
I think the analogy worked, just about.
We'll give that one a B- for your analogies.
Okay.
And I think the Be Gone bug is going to come on. No!
What?
Just about heals up over his XQ threshold and get his revive
No way.
off. Lugan survives, and he deserves the spam torn there.
Oh my goodness, Bluegan.
Spreen! What a
Sorry,
snipe.
coming from a mile away. That was the age-old Ra ult right there. You walk around the corner and you press the 4 button. Because everyone knows, if you can't see your target, you are 20% more likely to hit the Ra ult. And hit it, he did. Oceans is going to take a tumble. And at 7 minutes, Spreed, for the first time in this set, looked like they have a commanding early game lead.
I did point out at the end of game number 2 that if I was Spreed, I would not be happy with how the early game's gone in the previous 2 games, and I would change it up, and lo and behold, they've changed it up. Solo Troll finds himself a level up on Kermi, finds himself being the more effective of the 2 junglers right now in this early game for the first time in these 3 games set, in this 3rd game of this set. And Spreen on this Ra has been relatively untouched as his primitive, which is kind of strange given how we expected these fights to play out.
For sure, definitely not enough prioritization on these mid laners as I think maybe anyone would like, other than Primitive and Spreen, who are like, oh, Dip, I thought we were going to be like completely ganked out. This is wonderful. They're both sitting around level 9, and Bluegan caught in a bit of a rough position here. The entirety of Hugs and Kisses is here, minus the solo laner. Bluegan, try and make your way out of this one, buddy.
Unfortunately, he didn't have the Scarab's Blessing available to him, otherwise I think he buys himself just another few seconds. But caught out of position completely. Deserved death. Very easy kill for Hugs and Kisses. Put themselves on the board.
Bye-bye, Bug Bro. Hugs and Kisses finally able to find some revenge, as you said. But Spreed gonna take advantage of that fact, and I do believe they pick up the red buff there. Yep, you see the little green icon under that red sword off the top left-hand side of your UI. That is Spreed yet again invading one of Hugs and Kisses' buff, and just edging that lead ever further. If we can take a look at the graphs, I think Spreed have about 2.5K gold. There it is, just shy of about...
Void's gone. Void's the stunning Chronic in a world of trouble, forced to use that execute early, just off the mark. There was Spring with that second ultimate, not getting that 20% bonus because he was in sight of Chronic. And that is going to be a nice blue buff invade and the force of that execute. So all in all, a good invade again for Spreed.
Yeah, and we're just going to see Spreen pretty much go back and try and keep farming here. They've got a pretty decent lead, so considering there's nothing really on the map for them to capitalize off, I don't think they're going to do anything flashy, but speaking of the devil, Gaijay looking to potentially 1v1 Renjaru right there. Hugs and Kisses looking like they're really on the back foot here. What kind of things are we looking for this Chaos side roster to do right now?
Looking for Kermie to get on the board and actually start looking for a gank or two of his own. That's exactly what he's doing right now. Looking for Heat. Does get the torn off, but beats placed perfectly. And now comes the Kingslayer ultimate. He pays with his life for the gank. And Heat's trying to get away as much as he can. Unable to get away from that combat dodge from Chronic. 1-for-1 trade. Solo laner for jungler. And Kermie has to be happy with that, despite the fact he dies.
Yeah, definitely the more valuable target. I mean, if I'm you're a level 8 Erlang Shen, you're trading up for the level 11 solo laner who is got a little bit of a lead and a bunch of momentum from those 2 kills and 2 assists that he's got to his name. So definitely going to be happy about that. Once again, Spreen up here in this left-hand side, stealing away the red buff. Supported here by his support, Blugan, who's making his way over. Hugs and Kisses also looking to potentially get Gaijay under some duress, but Gaijay's boxing back into it. Renjaru baited himself too hard, and now finally Oceans has made the rotation, but it's too little too late. Up into the ultimate form he goes, but do Spreed have the damage to chase him down? Potentially, but they're not going to do it either way, just letting Oceans run away. But Spreed could potentially look for that secondary ultimate, see if he can find another pick onto Cthulhu, but nope. Instead, just prioritizing this tier 1 in the left-hand side. Spreed looking absolutely clean so far here, AJ.
This is the Spreed I expected to see when the tournament was first announced and when we had a good proper look in our analysis before the set even begun. Spreed do find themselves 5,000 gold, or just shy of it. 5,000 gold and 4,000 experience difference in the lead right now. Unbelievable stuff from coming out from the SOC winners.
Yeah, well, I mean, we say that, right? But there's definitely still the potential for Hugs and Kisses to come back into this. Spreed was in a similar situation in game number 1, and Hugs and Kisses have shown themselves definitely capable of winning a team fight from behind, but considering that Hugs and Kisses, they had the experience lead in that first game, but the gold definitely, I don't think, ever got quite this out of hand until late in that game too. So we'll have to see how they are able to come back into this as we progress. The Pyro Giant, there it is again, AJ. Ding me on the counter. Pyromancer has just come up. So Spreed might be looking to add another objective onto their belt.
They'll be looking for a fight first. It seems to have just been their mantra of, we take the fight, we win the fight, then we get the objective. We don't want to look for the objective before the fight unless we're really far ahead like they did in game number 1. And right now, 5 members are still up for Hugs and Kisses, so objectives aren't on the table unless their buff invades. At which point there's going to be here Renjaru could be the next meal. Does get rooted, but does run away from the ducked from the Capri, so it's going to be a-okay. Still has his beats available just in case he needs to use them. But the more pressing matter for him is the fact that Gaijay has A, finished Rage, and B, finds himself 3 levels up.
definitely having a great time. And going back to your point on the objectives, Hugs and Kisses definitely have a decent time when it comes to Spreed trying to take those objectives from under their nose. One of the big advantages of having that new eye is if you don't know where on the map Spreed are, you can just press the 4 button and then instantly you have vision on everyone on the map for those few seconds. As over on the right-hand side, some action might be popping off here. Spreed has gone into that ultimate form. Kingslayer has been popped, and Crimmy might be in a bit of trouble. SOT looking like he could be the target. Sakurai's sword technique. It looks like Chronic could be shredded, but he's going to be able to get out just fine thanks to some help from his support. Oceans, though, looking a little worse for wear. Crimmy able to get that heal off, but will it matter? No, SOT dashes through him, takes that last chunk off of his HP bar, and Chronic overstayed his welcome. Spreed gets the snipe through the wall, and that's going to put the Soul Laner on ice, as 2 of the tankier targets on this team are in the ground. Erlang and Achilles nowhere to be seen. This tier 2 tower looks very tasty on the menu for Spreed. Yet again, getting the fight, getting the objective, and it wouldn't surprise me if they went for one of the 2 fireplaces.
I would say Pyromancer would be the call here, but Blugan started up actual fire. They do have Ra on their team, so it can sustain a bit further on this, but this is one... how to throw a game 101. Start the Fire Giant when there's 3 members of the enemy team available, one of which is a Ram. Step 2, have it stolen from you. Looks like they're going to try and avoid step 2 here by just zoning the Ram away.
Zoning the Ram? How about killing the Ram? SOT putting Renjaru into the ground, however, might have overstayed his welcome. Chronic gets back just in time. There's the Blink Shield Bash double kill for the Achilles, taking off the Fire Giant buff of SOT and he. That's going to be some big players missing their bonus damage and regen. Luckily, though, Guy J, in my mind, probably one of the most important player to have this Fire Giant buff onto. Still does have it, but losing SOT and Heed is going to be pretty upsetting.
It is, but Spreen and Guy J are probably the 2 most important ones, like you pointed out. So I wouldn't be too displeased with how it went. Just, it slows them down a bit. They could have taken the Fire Giant all backed and all immediately been starting to push up on a tower at this point in the mid lane, I would have suggested. But now they have to wait until Solo Troller and Heat both get back into the fight, both get back into the swing of things. And it's going to take them just about an extra 30 seconds, I would say, before they can start to make use out of this Fire Giant.
Well, sometimes 30 seconds is all that you really need. Hugs and Kisses have a pretty decent defense comp here with Chronic's Execute and Crimmy's pure damage and sustain. So we could see them put up a pretty decent fight under these towers and Phoenixes, but already forced up into the ultimate is Primitives. That's going to be unfortunate for him. Sword Troll, I think that fingers the beads there. Luckily, I don't think anyone on H&K saw it, but it can be devastating if any of them try and lock down this Nemesis, who doesn't really have any way out if she gets caught with that ultimate. But Crimmy in the jungle here is going to be able to pull SOT in, pin just off the mark thanks to the double dash there from Nemesis. So luckily for SOT, he's going to be fine just for now. Looks like Spreed aren't really wanting to fully commit to this just yet, but a nice double ultimate there from the Ra's going to start up the fight. Shell's already popped and Scarab's Blessing already on the ground, but for the Kepri, bit of a misplay. Heed, though, is going to be the first one to fall. This gives H&K a really good opportunity to come back into this, but they don't want to push their luck too far. They got the kill, they forced them out of their tier 2, and now Spreed have to play on the defensive. They're running away, potentially looking for this Gold Fury.
I think that when that Morale Snipe just about misses 4 people, you need to back out of that fight and just say, right, we take that as a wash, we reset, we wait until everything's back up, then we can re-engage again. Let's just go get the Gold Fury for now in a 5 versus 5. We can win that fight easily still. But now, Kermie, look, almost got abducted there into his demise. Ocean's going to be chased down here by Guy J. Guy J still level 17, the highest level member on the entire map alongside Spreed. And up into the sky goes Renjaru. That's not a safe spot, I don't think.
But Spreed are still going. Guy J here looking to just shred through these tanks. Oceans is going to fall already, but Chronic in the backline. He's going to find a return kill onto SOT, and now it looks like Crimmy's looking for another one. The rest of his team are around him. Blugan, no Scarab's Blessing available to him, but the snipe is going to be good to take out the health bar. Primitive Heed finishes off the little bit of the rest. Chronic, though, is going to get another kill onto Blugan. Crimmy, last one left alive in this engagement so far. Guy J picks up the Erlang Shen, and Chronic forced away on the backline. It's going to be a decent little trade out there for H&K. They do manage to trade out 3 for 2, as far as I'm aware, so a little bit of victory. Gaijay and Spreen, though, the two most important people, still have that Fire Giant buff available to them, and with H&K TKO'd, having to back to base, Tier 2 tower should be very simple for Spree to take, and that's another 1.5k in the pockets of the blue team.
Okay, Spreen, I know you meant to hit Kermie with that ultimate. We could all see you wanted to hit the Erlang Shen with it, but instead you hit Privative, and actually that works out better for the rest of the members of Spreen as well. He makes his rotation in behind Privative, sees that he's just instantly pulled onto low health, goes, hello, I'll take this free kill, and immediately starts tearing through the rest of the team. Manages to go help out Spreen with the Kermie chase as well. Kermie unfortunately ran out of mana, and that's probably the only thing you could say that's a bit negative about his build right now, is the fact that he doesn't have any form of mana sustain. So if he falls out of mana, it's very difficult to get it back, and it's very difficult for him to get back any life right now, considering he has to wait 43 seconds to do so.
The perfect metaphor. They were trying to get mana and ended up paying for it with their lives. Chronic is going to fall down here as well. Double kill for SOT. And now with this exposed Phoenix here and no one really able to contest, Gaijay spots out one of them. I think he probably saw Oceans on the map as well. Gonna spot out that there's no one really here available to contest this Phoenix. Ocean walks into this, but whether or not he can really deal with it is any man's guess. The Phoenix should fall here nice and easily, and if I'm a betting man, I'm gonna say Spreen, run away and giggle about the Firebird they're having fatigue.
Yeah, 6 seconds left on Kermie, 22 seconds left on Chronic, and Fire Giant could be the next one on the docket here. Started up by Gaijay, the rest of the members of Spree just assuming their positions. 2 on the Fire Giant, 2 of the other ones looking to zone. The Solo Troll feels like he doesn't need to help Pete zone out the rest of the team. Fire Giant going to be taken down very easily. Second Fire Giant of the game, 20 minutes in. Not often you hear that sentence. And Pyromancer also falls.
It's one of those games. This is more like the NA that I was expecting when I was hyping you up the other day, AJ. Message you saying you excited to cast these super fast NA games this weekend. You were like, yeah, I don't get to talk at all, but it's been pretty calm from these two teams so far, but this game definitely cranked up to 11, and even though there haven't really been too many kills, only about 1 per minute, as we tick into minute 21, it's definitely felt a lot more combative than some of the other games in this set.
It has done, and we would have had more kills this game had it not been for the fact that Bluegan is playing a god that can just straight up say, no, you do not kill this person. Instead, they're back up with 40% health. Kepri, definitely been one of the standout picks, I would say, this game. Has allowed Spree to do pretty much whatever they wanted in most of these fights. And the second somebody does get revived, who's there to help heal them back up to full health? It's Spreen on the Ra. Doesn't have himself a Rod of Asclepius, but does have himself the Lotus Crown. So when you are standing in that Ra heal, you're gaining something like 50 protections just for standing in it. It's insane.
Ridiculous. It's mini Bellona ult. It's a mini Bellona ult that also gives you healing and damages enemies on a tick. It is. It's straight up better Bellona ult, at least for this patch, as Spree definitely making good use of it as they are looking to break the base on the other side of the map. This is the non-Fire Giant side, so probably one of the more important Phoenixes of the match. However, something tells me if Spree are able to take this one down, they probably run away with the rest of this game. Gaijay, it looks like he's going to get rooted, but out here in the mid lane, Heat taking on a 1v2 against Chronic, who's looking to stop the 280, the junglers, essentially, from taking this. Primitive is going to kill him, credit for solo or troll, but Heat, Kirimi, looks like he might fall down. Heat just about managing to survive. Primitive gets a second one in the left-hand side as both Phoenixes either fall or fall very, very low. This left-hand Phoenix at about 10% HP. Heed just about overcaps on that healing to survive the execute from Chronic, and now looking for the turnaround. Chronic might fall down here, but Heed not quite trusting himself in the 2v1 as Oceans approaches.
Set is just unbelievably ridiculous. Just walk in, can pretty much take the Phoenix by himself. A little help from Solo Troll, just a tiny bit. But if you'll have a notice of his build, it's all bruiser-specific items. So Frostbound Hammer allows him to stick to targets very easily. You've got the Berserker Shield to give him a fair bit more attack speed, some penetration, some protections as well. You have the Sledge, probably the best bruiser item in the game. Power, health, protections, you name it, it's going to give you some. And then also Kadusha Shield, which allows him to heal up even more during that Kingslayer ultimate, as well as get some more extra healing from the Ra, should he also be around that heal. So, all in all, a build that just complements the entire kit of set.
For sure. Kadusha's Shield, I think, is one of those items that is like low-key slept on, right? Like, you see it being picked up every now and then, and every time that it is, everyone's like, oh, wow, yeah, Kadusha's Shield, that thing is incredible. But then it kind of disappears from your mind for some reason. But this thing is very, very strong. As you can see, there's some prots, some power, some health, and increases your healing and everyone else's healing around you by 10 to 15%, which is really good for everyone involved. Everyone's going to be happy. It's not just going to be healing up extra from that Ra, but everyone around him as well. But Heed might be in a bit of trouble. Does pop the Kingslayer already, but in the left-hand side, look at these health bars. Solo and Troll reflect damage is just eating them up now. It looks like Crimmy is going to fall down as well. He takes credit for that kill. Blugan, I believe, already popped the Scarab's Blessing, which, I mean, blessing or a curse, SOT still survived. Can't say that he wouldn't have needed it, but the Phoenix is going to fall down here, and with only 3 defenders left on H&K, it's going to come down to Chronic.
Right,
and his ultimate could absolutely be game, as right ultimate is going to be sieged up by the minions. In the meantime, Spreed, charge into the base. There it is. Up into the ultimate goes Oceans. Trying to peel them off. The knockup is going to be good, but it's not going to be good enough as Spreed eat through the Titan and progress through into the second stage of the winner's bracket. Whereas H&K are going to have to be in the loser's side so far. AJ, that was a game. That was a game.
That felt like what we should have been seeing the other 2 games coming out from Spreed, and unfortunately, they just a bit slow to the races, I would say, just needed to adjust to the level that they're expected to be playing at in this tournament. But the second they found their level and found their pace, untouchable, I would say. Just that Khepri and Ra pick just shows why Khepri and Ra are banned consistently right now this tournament. I mean, it was impossible for H&K to even get a look in most of these fights because of those 2 picks.
It's insane. I feel like Khepri is one of those characters who can just either make or break a game depending on how he's played and played around. I just don't think H&K had an answer for it. It just was so useful to Spreed through that entire match. But you know what, AJ? I want to see what Dolson and the rest of the analysts think about this set. So take it away, guys. What do you think?
I think Khepri's straight up annoying, if that's what you guys are trying to get at. I mean, I'm trying to kill somebody and they immediately get res and I gotta fight them all over again. That seems pretty obnoxious in a good way to me, especially if you're Spreed and you've got him on your side. Just a little warm-up needed for Spreed here in this set, and they'll take game 3 and move on. Kiki still with me to round out our first set of the day. Kiki, this is probably one of the cleaner games we saw out of Spreed, or really out of the set so far here. It seemed like Spreed were just kind of in control from the start. We're able to convert that into a win.
Right. You say clean for one team. I say dirty for the other.
Sure.
The Cthulhu support not really offering much, especially against a comp with so much self-sustain. You know, Cthulhu support is just going to tickle. He has a root and a couple of fears. Really good job, though, on Solo or Troll. Really impressed by his gameplay today. And Guy J as well. He ended up getting a solo kill. I'm pretty sure they were trying to gank him, but he just decided, you know what, I'm going to turn it around, and he got a quick 1v1 on Renjaru, really just setting the pace for this last set.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what we expect, I think, from Guy J and really SOT, especially playing up the SPL level this year and then making the swap over here to the Spreed team. It was the expectations, I think, that their names alone probably carried. So good to see them step up in games like this, and really just rough across the board. I think it's tough, honestly, probably for Chronic here. My man goes 5-2-2 and probably did his best, unable to convert that into a win. Oceans on the Cthulhu. I think that raises an interesting point. It was not bad. I think 0-2-5 is what that KDA was, so not necessarily a bad support KDA there. Do you have any horse in the race as far as support Cthulhu versus solo Cthulhu? Do you think maybe a pivot and draft could have worked out better there for Hugs and Kisses?
Well, I noticed the damage at the end there, and Cthulhu support didn't manage to out-damage his 2 carries. So there's obviously some benefits to that, but there's also the fact that he wasn't quite peeling for his carries. Right. So, you know, it's a give or take. You got to make sure that your comp is always balanced. And the better balanced team won that last match.
No, I agree. I mean, doing damage is great, but doing the support thing is also pretty important there. Not that necessarily, again, that Ocean's had a particularly bad game one way or another. That's really maybe just full-on compositionally based there. But important to note, as BlazyBar did at the end of that game there, not all over for Hugs and Kisses just yet. They'll have a chance moving forward down in that lower bracket. But this Spreed team immediately becomes very interesting, especially in our set later on today, Get a Grip versus Spreed. I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And then Froggy versus Mind the Gap, the winner of that will move on to face the Winner Dogs. I suppose you can't lose against the team called the Winner Dogs or something like that. You got the name Winner in your name, that immediately means you're going to end up winning
I'm
here.
Intimidated.
But, right, you're intimidated by the Winner Dogs nonetheless. Jokes aside, though, where's your confidence level stand now in this Spreed team moving forward? Do they seem like a squad of guys that can maybe take a set over the #1 seed in the bracket?
Right. I mean, Blugin, before, I used to compete against his mid lane, and he really impressed me. He would love to rotate. You would see his Poseidon getting top banned. So Blugin is the type of player who will take his playstyle, and he'll just keep building upon it until it's really good. Right. I think that he's a very key part to this team, making sure that they have some sort of structure. Their drafting phase is on point. I'm definitely worried, and I would not take them lightly if I was in this tournament.
I agree. It's not the type of team that, you look at them and you're like, all right, well, they're a lower-seeded team coming into this bracket. I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors at play, especially with just some of the names that team brings along into a lot of these brackets. I do kind of want to zoom out a little bit, though. Did anything surprise you as far as pick-ban priority today? Not necessarily specifics or specifics if you want to go there, but apart from, what maybe EU was prioritizing yesterday, did anything really stand out here in North America today that you might expect to move on? Anything like that?
I guess the Cupid being favored a bit, Hugs and Kisses was banning Cupid when we didn't even see him getting picked sometimes. It feels like maybe it was a bit outdated. I know that we did see the SPL pros even not favoring Cupid as much. So maybe Hugs and Kisses wasn't fully aware of the current meta. But it seems like Spreed's team is very aware, just pick set, pick some sort of self-sustaining characters, and try not to die and play as a team.
That's right, yeah. If you don't die a lot and you can stay grouped up, which is where Spreed need to continue to put some of their efforts, you tend to do very well in your sets. We'll see them in action in our third set of the day against the #1 seed here in North America. But before that, we'll have one more matchup to find who's going to play in our fourth set of the day. Stick around right after this break.